how are we doing on this Sunday morning? For quite a few weeks now, we've been getting some complaints that our streams are so late and that it's absolutely impossible for international fans, fans in Europe, fans in Asia sometimes to tune into these. So hopefully a Sunday morning impromptu stream is what the doctor ordered. We're going to be pretty structured today. Um, Here's how we're going to do it. Number one, I'm going to paint out 5 premises that I believe should be taken for granted with the Raptors approaching the trade deadline. Second, 5 variables that I think could go either way depending on how you feel about what the Raptors are thinking right now. I'm going to present 10 trades. There are 2 bonus trades that go in the other direction for the Raptors, just in case there's still an inkling of hope that the Raptors could salvage this season, because they're not that far out. But they have a pretty sizable sample size to know that this core does not work. So we're going to talk about those premises. We're going to go into those 10 trades. They're not repetitive. There are a couple that center on some stuff we've talked about, but some of them are pretty fresh. So I think you're going to get a bit from it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to flash the trade. When we get to that part of the show, we're going to flash the trade. And what I'd like for the chat to do is to grade the trade from the Raptors perspective. And obviously, you can let me know if you think it's realistic. So there is no call-in link right now, but I'm going to put it in the chat right now. And we're going to be taking call-ins around, I want to say around 11:15. So if you'd like to call in and maybe discuss a trade that we haven't thought of, by all means, you can do that as well. I'm going to put that here right now. 1 second here. Call in around 11:05 a.m. So let's put that here. And I will add that to the description when we get closer to that time. So first, let's get to the premises that I believe the Raptors should be operating under, because let's be honest, there's been a lot of talk that they weren't going to do anything on this road trip. However, that road trip ends tonight. This could be the Raptors' swan song for this particular iteration of the Raptors. Things could fall apart as early as tomorrow. There are some thought and probably some very concrete thoughts that they're not going to rush this, that they may wait right till the deadline. But with potential Kyrie, KD, a lot of stuff floating in the air, if you're the Raptors, if there's something that you really like on the table right now, I say why wait? We've seen it done before. Obviously, a lot of teams do like to wait till the very, very final moment. There are deals that are just tentatively done and they're just waiting on a final sort of include this second round or that second round. And, it's human nature to just wait till the last second, as probably evidenced by this, because I started this stream 5 minutes late because I was waiting till the last possible moment to get my coffee ready. But I think it's possible that you could hear some concrete stuff being ironed out as early as tonight after the game, maybe tomorrow or the next day, and then maybe it doesn't hit until Thursday, but we could see it. So first, let's get to the premises. So here are the premises that I'm banking on. The first 5 are what I think are pretty non-negotiable. So first, the Raptors are actually building around Scottie Barnes. Now, the burden of proof is on me to prove that, but I think if you're watching what is going on with this team, if you've been hearing the rumors, if you believe what people have reported, Scottie is not on the table. He has not been shopped at any point, whether he was struggling, whether he was at any point. They've been very high on him since they drafted him. They have a lot of belief in him. Obviously, they had enough belief in him that they wanted him to play point guard. They asked their all-star point guard to move off ball. So there's a lot of thought that while they're taking it slow with him and they don't want to overload him, that the long-term vision has always been that this is Scottie's team and that they were trying to see if maybe he could step it up in time and mesh with this current iteration, that this core could have a chance. But right now, it hasn't really worked out. He seems sort of lost in the offense half the time, and when he's running the offense, it feels like other guys are lost. So it seems like unless you're going to bank on him being, sort of your fourth option long term, having him be a first option hasn't really worked well for other guys. So The number two premise is that the Raptors are satisfied with the progress and flashes of upside they've seen from Christian Koloko and see him as a major rotation piece for 2023-2024. I think he's shown a lot. I think he's shown a lot in the short roll. I think he's shown a lot as, a defender. And, if you caught the last show or the previous show, you saw how much he impacts the game in terms of winning, right? It hasn't always looked pretty on offense, but I think that will come. I think the Raptors should have hope. If they're seeing what I'm seeing, they should have hope in him as a playmaker. There's a lot to say about playmaking from the center of the court, and short roll playmaking is a really huge part of modern NBA offenses, as evidenced by the sheer dominance of Nikola Jokic, Draymond Green, Domantas Sabonis, etc. Whether he ever learns how to shoot from three, and I think I've seen a lot of promise on that regard. He hit a, near game winner in that game where, I think it was his first made three. He took it with confidence. I see a lot of potential for him being a Miles Turner type player. I see more playmaking from him than I did at this stage of Miles Turner's career. But obviously, the offense still has a long way to go. But I do see him as a part of the future. I don't see a way in hell over the next 5 days that he's traded. Number three, the Raptors value draft assets, specifically in the 2023 draft, early to mid first round range, and have multiple targets that they see fitting in with the Barnes-centered core. I've been scouting this draft a lot over the last couple of days. I didn't have much of a chance last year because it didn't seem like it was worth it with how good the Raptors were last year, that they were going to have a high lottery pick, and that just completely went out the window when they traded their first round pick. There's two parts to this. Number one is that they really value the top of the 2023 draft, and they have a realistic chance right now. They're sitting sixth from the bottom right now, and if they do initiate some sort of tank-friendly moves, as evidenced by the Tank World Order intro to this show, then I could genuinely, and I do mean genuinely, see a case that there's no chance that they would move off that 2023 pick unless it was, I don't think they would even do a swap, to be honest, at this point. It doesn't make sense with the upside. Now, the more I scout this draft, the more I like this draft. There are players in that 1 to 3 range, 1 to 2 range specifically, that clearly would change the fortunes of this franchise immediately. And I do mean immediately. And we'll talk about that at some point in this show. We will talk about who I really like in that draft. And there are some names that I've alluded to in a previous show. But that 2023 pick, it feels like they would like one more, maybe two more. Because if you're going to reset the youth, I think there's a marginal upside to how far you can go with these sort of second round picks. I know Christian Koloko is a really good player, but guys like Delano Banton, David Johnson, DeJuan Hernandez, look, this is a good scouting team, but they're not miracle workers, right? Lottery talent is lottery talent. This is a team that has made really mountains out of molehills in a lot of ways. They've taken players like Pascal Siakam, Norman Powell, O.G Anunoby, Fred VanVleet, and develop them into all-star level type players or solid starters. What this team could do with 3 years of development with a serious lottery talent like an Anthony Black, like a Cason Williams, someone like that, Cason Wallace, or even fringy, but high, super high upside prospects like Baba Miller. What these guys could do with a skeleton like that, is provided that a prospect is willing to work, is, amazing. And I think that'll factor heavily, not only in terms of how many picks they want in any trade package that they go for, but also in terms of the type of players they want back in these trades. And there are going to be some young prospects that we're going to look at. Some are somewhat reclamation projects. Some are slightly older, but still young enough to fit with a Scottie-centered core. And some are, frankly, just rookies from this year's draft class or last year's draft class that I think could fit with what the Raptors are trying to do. The fourth premise is that the Raptors believe in long-term commitment to the Raptors believe that the long-term commitments to all 4 core veterans will not be feasible, and that provided their target salary ranges and why it doesn't work. Okay, so specifically Gary Trent Jr. at $25 million. There's a lot to say about that. Obviously, he's evolved a lot as a player, but the playmaking is still mediocre, if not non-existent. The paint finishing has gotten better. The shot making has always been really good, but streaky. He is 24 years old, does seem to fit on the timeline and on the play style of Scottie. There seems to be a lot of synergy on and off the court between those two. However, the defense is not great. And I think that there's a sort of upside limitation to how much you have to compensate for his lack of defense with schemes. The Raptors really were able to mask it a lot better last year when Fred VanVleet was still an overwhelmingly positive defender for the most part of the season. This year, the Raptors have been better with Fred VanVleet on the bench defensively. They have obviously been better with him offensively on the court. So I see it as now you have two negative defenders in the backcourt. And yes, I do see Gary Trent Jr., despite his deflections, steals, etc., as a negative defender. And I will continue to see that because I look with my eyes, not at the box score. And his analytics prove it as well. So could you replace him pretty easily? There are a lot of guys in this league that can provide isolation scoring and not much else. And I think the question is, what else does he give you other than isolation scoring? We've all been very excited about his 3-level expansion as a scorer. But how much are we really able to discern in terms of 25 million, 30 million? Are we able to lock into that type of cap figure for him? Obviously, Fred VanVleet has reportedly and then retracted, but then reportedly, and people are pretty firm that it came from his agent or it came from him. But he seems pretty firm that he wants Tyler Hero money, and I don't think he's worth it. Despite his improved play lately, despite the fact that I do believe he's a hell of a player and definitely still has at least a couple years left as a starter in this league, I think his long-term future, at some point in that contract, he's going to become a backup earning $35 million a year or $30 million a year, and I don't think that's worth it. So if he were open to a 2 to 3 year 2 years is obviously off the table, but if he were open to a 3-year contract, something similar to what Kyle Lowry was doing, I could even see the upside of it. I think he's a lot better than he's shown this year, even if I don't like his role in this offense. And I think any negotiation with him coming back would have to include a firm 1,000% buy-in for him to play off ball. Because I think that while it is not where he is most effective, it is where the team is most effective with him playing. Pascal Siakam, of course, supermax, 35% of the cap, probably out the window at this point. The Raptors are struggling. He is struggling. And I do not see that in the cards for him. All NBA is pretty much kissed that goodbye. On the last live show, we did our top 20 players in the NBA. Spoiler alert, he did not make it. All NBA is top 15. So while it's possible, I do not say it's impossible. Obviously, he could turn it on like gangbusters if the Raptors stand pat at the trade deadline, which I do not think that they will do. But surely he could realistically average 30 points per game from this point on with dominant box score. And if the Raptors eke into the play-in, then boom, he's back into All-NBA conversation. The question for the Raptors is, do you buy the upside on the latter end of that contract? The Raptors have gotten great value out of O.G Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, and Fred VanVleet. I think they've also gotten great value out of Gary Trent Jr., but less so, because they had to sign him up to an extension pretty much half a season from when they got him. However, I think it's worth noting that the next contract for all of these players could be a poison pill in a sense, that I don't think that any of these players will necessarily be worth the type of money that they're looking for other than OG Anunoby potentially. And overpaying when you have potential extensions coming up for Precious Achiuwa, Christian Koloko, I know people are not thinking about it right now, but he signed a 3-year contract as a second round draft pick, and I guarantee you that he will, if his development goes correctly, you'll be paying quite a bit of money for him in 2 years. And of course, Scottie Barnes, where you can pretty much pencil that supermax in whenever you'd like. And it might be more than the max contract you're looking at if he evolves even more next year as a player and makes an All-NBA team or something. So, long-term, short-term, you don't want to get straddled with crazy contracts because it will potentially limit your ability to keep the guys that are on youth upside contracts. I think it will also potentially also force you to have to part with assets to trade guys later on, because obviously when a player starts to decline and they have multiple years left on their contract and they're not really seen as worth it around the NBA, especially when they're not marquee names as is, like Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr., Pascal Siakam. There's not Carmelo Anthony. No one is going to be able to sell out an arena because they trade for this guy. So I think that there is a sort of downside to signing these guys long term, especially if they regress massively. And yeah, so that's sort of where I'm at with that one. And then finally, the fifth premise is that the Raptors remain committed to length. Apologies on that typo there. Positional versatility and Vision 6-9. I'm going to assume that nothing that has happened this year or last year is moving the Raptors off of their eventual goal of a team full of, Brandon Ingrams and O.G Anunobys and Scottie Barnes. I think they want to play this way. I think there's a lot of logic. I think there's evidence that playing this way is beneficial in the modern NBA. And I think that they have seen reasonable success whenever they have done it. Case in point, last year in the playoffs when they started Scottie Barnes at point guard, they played bigger. And I think that the Sixers had trouble with it. And I think had they played bigger sooner last year, instead of, running out the corpse of Fred VanVleet out for those first 3 games based on, I don't know, bet on yourself pride, I think they probably would have won that series. Because say what you want, it's a hell of a time trying to score against a team where everyone is that long. So I think that they will continue to play that way, and I think that they'll look for pieces that fit better into that vision. Because 3 years ago this was a hypothesis that when you moved off of Kyle Lowry that you could do it this way. And obviously drafting Scottie Barnes has been a really big part of that. But you've seen it. You have seen that length has been a really big focus for this team, right? Going back to players they've drafted, even players they haven't drafted, but they tried to draft. There are players that they've tried to draft in previous years that just couldn't make it work, like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, where they were willing to part out any player on their roster in 2018 to get him to get into that draft before they made that Kawhi trade. Giannis Antetokounmpo. Even players that they drafted where it didn't work, like Bruno Caboclo, you can see that this is a team that really prioritizes plus wingspan. Sometimes it burns you, like Desmond Bane, right? But I think playing that way is going to help this team, and I don't see any reason why they would stop trying to play that way. Now for the maybe variables. So my maybe variable number 1 is that OG is not really on the market, or that he's not seriously being entertained. I think they understand with him that he's frustrated with his role, that he would like a bigger role because he is severely underpaid. I don't see why they would ever move off of him. I think if anything, you saw a very reasonable sample size this year with Siakam out, that he really can be a really good second option, or even a makeshift first option. I don't think he long-term can be a first option, but on a tanking team, he can realistically put up 22, 23 points per game. But obviously with Pascal Siakam back, the Raptors at full health, he has not been great. And his production, his usage, everything has just slipped over the last month and a half. It hasn't been as glaring a drop-off as Siakam because the defense has remained somewhat steady, but he's been falling off for about a month and a half now. So, 2, Gary has quietly expressed a desire to return on $25 million contract, and the Raptors see an upside and a fit with him. I think, there's been various rumors that he wasn't happy about coming off the bench, but that, everything got smoothed over. So we'll just operate under the impression that they don't have to trade him, but they could trade him. Number 3, Precious Achiuwa is seen as a starter going forward, and trading someone is as much about making room for him as it is anything else. Number 4, the Raptors aren't willing to stand pat with potential lotto balls and Fred Max looming, which means that I do believe that they will make a trade, even though I cannot confirm that with any inside sources. I do believe that the writing is on the wall and that they cannot stand pat. There's just way too much on the line. There's too many variables going into this offseason. They do have to take something, and there's reasonable interest in all of their players. Number 5, Fred remains the most likely Raptors move due to defensive downside and contract, hence he's being featured more than ever. Yeah, so that's where I'm at with that. Now, let me just quickly browse the 95 comments that have come up, because I have not been looking at the comments, and then we'll get to the trades. All right. Okay. Okay, I see some people trying to make trades already. Thank you so much to everyone urging the like button. Love it. Thank you so much. Got 169 people in here on a Sunday morning. Love it. All right. Okay, just browsing the chat. There was a super chat sticker during the last chat for like $20, and I just missed it. So I don't want to be missing any super chat stickers and not being able to say thank you. So I just want to browse very quickly through these comments, and then we'll get to the first trade. All right. So I'm going to require some audience participation on this. As I mentioned before, what we're going to require is, okay, so we're just going to go to the first one. Okay. Let's get this going. All right. My first trade of the afternoon. Is it afternoon? No, it's morning. My first trade of the morning is going to be an Orlando Magic trade. All right. Now it's going to be a familiar face. It's going to be a name that's been talked about around Raptorland a lot. And that first trade is going to be a trade that we've brought up on the show before, and it's going to be Fred VanVleet for Jonathan Isaac and Jalen Suggs. Now, why for the Magic? Well, that's a good question, right? Why do it? They could very easily just offer Fred a max in the offseason. They'll have the cap space to do it. Why do this if you're them? Well, that is a really freaking $1 million question. But I think for them, it gets them a sure thing. It gets them the bird rights. It gets them, off of Jonathan Isaac's contract, which they could see as a negative at this point, right? He has been controversial in a sense for them. I don't think Jalen Suggs has really worked out for them at all. Jalen Suggs would not be the first player, in NBA history who's a top 5 pick who was moved before his second season was out. It happens quite often, actually, or it happens often enough that it's not unprecedented. I think for the Magic side, I think this makes sense just because I think it shows Fred sort of the faith that you're showing the Raptors have an established, relationship. And of course, there's always going to be another suitor for Fred VanVleet. And if you're the Orlando Magic and you really, really want this guy, I think the best way to make sure that he doesn't get traded somewhere else is to just make this trade for him. I don't think that they're giving up a lot from their end. But from the Raptors side, I think that they're getting back a hell of a lot. For starters, I think Jonathan Isaac is the type of player that really fits into Vision 6'9". He is a little bit taller than 6'9", obviously. And if you can rehab his value, he is a hell of a value contract to grab. It's at basically $17 million a year for the next 3 years. I think he is, I think he's a really good dude. I don't want to get into any of the vaccine stuff. I don't really care what a player's personal preferences are on that. Hopefully we're past that stage of human history. In terms of Jalen Suggs, I'm not a huge fan of Jalen Suggs, but he is a friend of Scottie Barnes. He is an upside defender, in my opinion. And if you can ever teach this guy how to shoot, his rebounding, his rim defense, he could be the ideal off-guard fit next to Scottie as a 2. He's quick and he's athletic and, he's a good passer, like a really good passer. He's a little turnover prone right now, really hasn't figured out the jump shot yet. But again, if the Raptors, if there is a team that can teach someone how to shoot, it's probably the Raptors. So chat, let me know. Number one, okay, someone saying no way the Magic do that. I wouldn't be so sure. They've got a glut of guards that have outperformed Jalen Suggs through and through. He has not shown a great deal of progress in his second year. I can see, why you think that they wouldn't do that. And trust me, I'm with you. I get it, but if you're the Magic and you really definitely believe in Fred VanVleet, and I think that they do, they could bring him on and basically give him the rest of the year off with a wink deal that they're going to give him as max. They'll tank with him. They'll have him. Frank Matos saying Magic need more. I don't think they're going to get more, to be honest. I think you're giving up the best player in this deal. You're giving them, a chance. And honestly, don't underestimate how much value there is to getting Fred ingratiated with that core right now. I think Fred fits really well with that core. They have all the plus size length to help him. You know, they have Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner. Those are two playmakers that he can really work off of. They have shooting. They have a lot, and they have such elite rim protection. So I could see this working out for the Magic as well. Yeah. Someone said Hikaru or Magnus. Magnus. Little chess stuff there. Okay. Bamba and Suggs is more likely. Well, I want no piece of Mo Bamba, to be honest, but I don't see why that makes more sense. Do you want to let me know why you think that makes more sense? I mean, look, this is based on a premise that they do not value Jonathan Isaac as a long-term asset going forward, right? If you get Fred VanVleet for these guys, I'm just throwing this out there. If you get him for these guys, your cap situation looks very different going into this offseason, right? So I think it sort of changes your team building stuff. And I think you get off of Jonathan Isaac's contract. Now, granted, he hasn't played in like 3 years, guys. He's barely started playing now. This is the last time we saw him was in the bubble. Like, just think about that. It's like basically pre-pandemic or just after the pandemic. That was 2020. So he didn't play in 2021, 2022. Like this, I think you might be drastically overvaluing not Mo Bamba, sorry, Jonathan Isaac. Let's move on to the next trade. Okay, like let me know in the chat right now. What do you think this trade deserves from the Raptors side? Like what would you grade this trade if the Raptors made this trade? Give me a range from A to F or A plus to F. Would you like this trade? Let's just do some free market research for the Raptors. Okay, we got C, A minus. Wow. Okay. All right. All right. Okay. Got A minus, A, B, A plus. All right. A, B plus, B plus, A, B plus, A, B, B. I think I already explained that. B, C. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think that Jones Suggs has a considerable amount of value around the league. You do have to understand he is a top 5 pick who is making top 5 pick money, and he has not earned it. I'm being just completely blunt right now. He is not earning it. He is probably earning the contract of a top 30 pick right now. He's earning the value of a 30th pick. Jonathan Isaac hasn't played for them in 3 years. This is a very low risk, very high reward type of situation for the Raptors. You're buying very low on 2 prospects, 2 younger players. And for the Magic, again, you're kind of clearing your cap for the summer. You get Fred VanVleet, you get his bird rights, you get to keep him. You can, you have 2.5 months to integrate him with your core. I think it makes sense. Would the Raptors have to add a pick to it? I wouldn't add a pick. I don't like Jalen Suggs that much. And Jonathan Isaac, while I like him, is definitely not worth more than Fred VanVleet right now. Fred VanVleet is freaking averaging 30 plus points per game. Guys, like, I realize this channel, probably because of my talking points, is very anti Fred VanVleet, but you do have to understand that what is the competing offer for him? Are the Lakers willing to dangle 2 first-round picks to get him, right? Because if they are, then I don't think that you could get 2 first-round picks right now for Jonathan Isaac and Jalen Suggs. Just consider it that way, right? I know it feels like, oh my God, you're getting 2 younger players for this bum that we don't like, but the reality is this bum that you don't like is gunning for a $35 million contract. So ask yourself the question right now. If Fred VanVleet hit the market right now, let's just do the hypothetical for those of you saying this is not realistic. If Fred VanVleet hit the market right now, what would the Magic pay him? Okay. And if Jalen Suggs and Jonathan Isaac hit the market right now, what would be the going rate for those two guys? I guarantee you neither one of those guys is commanding much more than the mid-level exception. Just to be frank. I just don't see it. There's too many health concerns with both of them. They're both super injury prone. Jalen Suggs has spent I'm sorry. It's just there's a huge risk here for the Magic to continue to hold on to these guys, and they just continue to be injured. So I don't think the Magic are giving up a lot. Okay, now the next two trades are going to be both to the Blazers. Now, why do the Blazers want to do this? Well, Dame Lillard's averaging 38 points per game over the last month. He's been insane. You need to give him some help. All right. And you don't want to get rid of the guys who are currently helping him. You want to be able to add to that. Now, who are the guys who are really helping him right now? And who are the guys that are sort of non-negotiable in terms of moving for them? Well, the guy who's really helping him right now is Jeremy Grant. So while Raptor fans may look at Jeremy Grant and his hot 3-point shooting and say, okay, well, we'd love Jeremy Grant back, probably not going to get Jeremy Grant, because if the Blazers are giving up Jeremy Grant for any of the Raptors pieces, I think it's mainly a lateral move just because of how much spacing he provides for that offense. So you're probably going to take back something like Yusuf Nurkic. But then they have a hole at center. So I tried to make these deals as reasonable for the Blazers as I possibly could. And the extracted value asset here is Shaedon Sharpe. Now, contrary to popular belief, Shaedon Sharpe has not been good this year at all. In terms of impact, he's one of the lowest impact rookies in the league. Comparing his impact to someone like Ben Mathurin or Dyson Daniels, it hasn't even been close. But you're banking on potential. Upside is you play him a lot, you're going to lose a lot, because right now he is a negative defender and a negative offensive player. The perks and the upside for Shaedon Sharpe are mainly athleticism, switchability, shooting. He could develop into a gunner. I think the upside is enormous, but it is right now just upside. And he would not be the first guy with massive hops to not become anything but a role player. Think guys like Nick Young, Gerald Green. There are a lot of really athletic guys who've come into the league and just haven't been able to click mentally. I think bringing him into the Raptors program right now could probably change the trajectory of his career because of how good the Raptors are at developing players. Also helps that he's a hometown kid. In a sense, he's a hometown kid. He's from London, Ontario, I believe. And someone correct me in the chat if I'm wrong on that one. I think he's from London, Ontario. And, I think it'd be great for the Raptors to have someone exciting to watch on a nightly basis. Shaedon Sharpe going up for dunks, drawing a lot of comparison to Vince Carter. I want to be honest, not Vince Carter. Athleticism may remind you of Vince Carter, but impact is much, much closer to Morris Peterson as a rookie right now, and probably worse. He is young. He does have upside. He does have a package. It's creative. It's fun to watch. I say, why not? So let's look at some Shaedon Sharpe trade packages. Trade package numero uno. Now, this is the one I don't want to do. And it is an O.G Anunoby trade package. And in this, I think the Blazers get a player that they really have wanted for over a year now. And the Raptors, they do a little bit of addition by subtraction in a sense. You do get you get rid of the one guy who's absolutely not helping you tank. You get a guy in Josh Hart who I think probably could fit into a lot of the lineups that O.G Anunoby's in right now. He's a plus size defender, really does help that part of the floor for you. And you get Shaedon Sharpe and you get a boatload of draft picks. Downside with any trade with Portland is they do not have those highly coveted 2023 draft picks. They do not have a 2023 draft pick. Or do they have a 20? No, they have a 2023 draft pick, but they cannot trade their 2023 draft pick right now because of the Stepien rule, if I recall correctly. So in order to make a trade with the Portland Trail Blazers, you may have to revisit this one in the offseason. Right before the draft, you'd have to make this trade on the draft. So you could agree to this one in principle right now and then revisit it in the draft. Because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, when I tried this trade in Fanspo, it queued the Stepien rule. So in this case, you would, if you wanted to do the deal right now, you would be going for long-term draft picks. Now, why would you want to do this? Well, Damian Lillard makes a ton of money, and Damian Lillard is a human being. There is a very good chance that one of those draft picks could be extremely high. So you would have to ask for Shaedon Sharpe and either light protection or no protection on those later draft picks. And then you sort of make this deal with the same philosophy that the New Orleans Pelicans made the Anthony Davis trade with, or the Utah Jazz made the Rudy Gobert trade with, which is that this other team is inevitably going to crater and that these draft picks are going to be worth a lot at some point in the future. And obviously those draft picks could be worth a lot to you as well, because especially if you're expecting to, re-up Pascal Siakam in this event, you don't trade Siakam and then you extend Scottie, you're going to really, really want those draft picks to come in at rookie scale contracts. So grade that trade for me. Are you guys okay? So let's grade that trade. Grade the trade. Okay. We're still talking about Suggs, eh? Okay. C. So Summer Low says C. Oh my gosh. Raps fan F. How are you giving that an F, man? So we're getting a lot of C's and A's and B's. Okay, Ned says A. B plus, but I don't think the Raptors trade OG. Jason Williams says it's not easy to find 3 and D guys. I agree, sort of. Sort of. I think this draft is full of them. That's kind of why I think that you could realistically, like, if there was ever a draft that was just tailor-made for the Raptors to just pick up prospects, this is the one, right? You'll be able to replace, I'm not saying that you get O.G Anunoby, but you'll get something that you can develop into an O.G Anunoby-esque type player, defender, pretty reasonably within the first 10, 12 picks. There's a couple of guys that I think fit the mold pretty well, especially if, rumors that he just isn't happy with the situation, would like a change of scenery. We don't have the exact details. It could just be because of role, but it could also be because he wants to be in a different place. You don't know that. Like, we haven't heard anything about, oh, he doesn't want to be here, but maybe it's a fit with the organization. Maybe it's, a broken promise. Like, there's a lot of things, maybe it's his agent trying to drive him into a different market or onto a winning team, right? He's trying to boost his value as a player for his next contract. That's going to be a bit of a clash, especially on a team with guys who are ahead of him in the pecking order, need those development touches like Scottie. But then also, if you're going to try to tank and this guy's trying to boost his value, he's going to cost you major lottery balls. So I'm for keeping OG. I'm for a wink deal that you sign with him. Just say, okay, we're going to send you to 35 million, 32 million, whatever you want, but chill on this season. Take your time to rehab, because there's a lot on the line, right? Extra lottery balls are very important. So I'm seeing, I don't know if you remember LeBronto, Rue, but I don't think OG really could guard LeBron in his prime either. I mean, I'm sort of torn on OG, right? Because on the one hand, I see the value. On the other hand, I think he's a little bit overrated. I'm just being honest. I think he's a little bit overrated. I mean, you're talking about a guy who is negative box plus minus right now. Negative box plus minus. Just because I think that he's the second or third best player on this team, he's still the second or third best player on a team that is comfortably outside the playoff position right now. And he's part of it. He's definitely part of it. He had a shooting slump early on. Wasn't working out for him. He's been turnover prone. His creation hasn't been great. His defense has been awesome. It covers up for a lot of the mistakes that the Raptors are making, but genuinely, he's 25 years old, and there are parts of his game that have not evolved over the last 3-4 years. I think there are balance issues. I think there's a sort of limited upside to how much you want to pay for a guy who at best projects as a third option. So I'm not saying that I would like to get rid of him. I am, however, saying that if the Raptors absolutely have a deal and he's not intending to stay and they see the upside on this draft and finding a replacement for him, I don't see why not. So Sheridan Forbes saying no deal for me. Um, Sean Stevenson saying OG could be a big piece if someone big becomes available in the offseason or even move up in the draft, keep him. So that's the problem, right? So the upside with OG right now is that he provides a year and a half. He's not a rental. The minute you start waiting to the offseason, he has 1 year left on his deal. You're in the exact same situation that you were with Gary and Fred in the offseason, which is any team trading for him is not getting the full value of him. A big part of OG and why he's such a valuable trade piece is the same reason why DeJounte Murray went for 3 first-round picks, is because he's so criminally underpaid relative to what he's providing you. And every ounce of every minute you hold on to him, the value diminishes. He is a declining asset because the minute you hold on to the offseason, I guarantee you get less for him in the offseason. If you try to do a sign and trade in the next offseason, you'll get even less for him. So every day you hold on to this guy, honestly, if they were intending to lose this season, they probably should have traded him last offseason and just drafted Dyson Daniels and done us all that favor. They didn't trade him this offseason. They held out thinking that this core might, work. And it hasn't worked. He hasn't worked. Pascal hasn't worked. None of it has worked together. Now, would I like to see what he would become if Fred and or Siakam were cleared out of the way? Sure. But I don't, yeah. Thanks, Mateo. All right. We will get to that. Okay, let's move on to another Shaedon Sharpe center trade. Now, you would think with the number of times that I'm bringing up Shaedon Sharpe here that I'm a really big Shaedon Sharpe fan. I'm not. I much prefer Dyson Daniels. I could probably sell myself more on Ben Mathurin, even though I'm not crazy about Ben Mathurin either. I think I really just like two-way prospects and two-way wings a lot. And I think there's a lot of those guys in this draft coming up. So there's a very good case to be made that I value the 10th pick, maybe the 9th pick or 10th pick in this draft coming up more than I value Shaedon Sharpe. So it's not a huge thing for me, but I do see the upside. I do see the athleticism. I do see what a coach like Nick Nurse and what this system development staff could do for a guy like that. Moving on to a different Portland Trail Blazers trade. This one, it's similar but different. So in this case, the only real difference is that instead of trading OG, you're going to trade Pascal Siakam and Malachi Flynn, and you're going to take back Yusuf Nurkic on a pretty long-term contract. So this will shut up, those media pundits who swear that the Raptors' big problem is that they don't have a center. And obviously, at some point, you're going to get rid of Yusuf Nurkic because he doesn't fit in with anything you're trying to do. But he is a big body. He is a good screen setter. And, he's a rebounder. And maybe, it'll be interesting to, have him go and abuse Christian Koloko. I think this trade could work. I think Pascal Siakam would be the most talented player that Dame Lillard has ever played with. I think you could easily convince the Portland Trail Blazers to part with not only 2 first-rounders, maybe even 3 first-rounders for this, if they're really, really in on it. But I think I kept it to 2 to be realistic because I think Shaedon Sharpe is kind of like a 3rd first-rounder. If you're the Raptors, why do you do this? Well, he doesn't really fit in with your timeline. He's a hell of a player. You're giving him up pretty much in a contract year, not in a contract year, but if you don't have the intention of extending him, you need to get rid of him, right? You just do. Otherwise, he's going to get sour. He's going to come into training camp next year. You're not going to give him the deal. He wants the deal, blah, blah, blah. It's a headache. It sort of hangs over your head. I think, to be proactive with these moves is smarter than being reactive. You don't want to wait till the offseason, try to negotiate a deal with him, and then he doesn't want to do the deal. He wants to wait around. He wants to sign the maximum bag. I don't think he's worth it. I think my thoughts on Pascal Siakam are pretty much clear at this point. So let's grade that trade. James Walsh, why do you not like that deal? I think you and I have pretty much, like, in conversations, we've firmed up that you feel a lot differently about Pascal Siakam than I do. But Nurkic is just salary filler at this point. You can move him the offseason. You can potentially even move him to a third team that needs a center. Like there's no shortage of teams that could use a guy. Well, there is a shortage of teams. There are a few teams that could definitely use him, to be honest. Um, yeah, that's exactly it. I think the 2027 pick, 2029 pick, 2025 pick, I think these picks, with an aging star like Dame Lillard, I feel the same way about the Golden State Warriors. I don't see a contingency plan in place. These are not necessarily markets that tend to draw in massive stars, kind of like with the Lakers, right? Everyone looks at those Lakers 2027, 2029 draft picks. I swear to God, by that point, they'll probably have Giannis or somebody else, right? The Lakers, they have been bad before. I get that. And they could be, inevitably, they could be terrible because they don't have draft picks and, Rob Pelinka running the show. But honestly, this offseason, they clear Russ's contract and boom, they sign another max guy. There's no shortage of guys who want to go to Los Angeles with, the cap boom and everything. The markets, I think that teams like Portland have a more difficult time resetting after a star ages out. They've obviously paid Dame Lillard a crazy amount of money, and it is a crazy amount of money because he's earning it, but at the same time, they don't have enough around him. I don't think Anthony Simons is that great, personally. I know he's a hell of a scorer. I just don't see their future being so bright. And in a lot of ways, you're kind of taking one of the keys to that future away in Shaden Sharp here too. So, and you're not giving them any draft picks back, and you're giving them Pascal Siakam, who is a player. In my expectation is that he will pretty much decline around the same time Dame Lillard does. If you don't lottery protect that 2025 and 2027 pick, I can almost guarantee that one of those picks is going to be a really good lottery pick. And while it's difficult to project right now what the 2025 or 2027 draft classes will look like, what I'm seeing more and more is that draft classes are getting better. Like there hasn't been a 2000 or 2001 draft class. The 2000 draft class. The 2005 draft class was kind of bad. Was it the 5 or 6? The 2006. Like it seemed like every 5 or 6 years there was a terrible draft class. The 2014 draft class was terrible. I haven't seen a terrible draft class in a while now. So I think that we've sort of weeded that out. The international players coming into the league every single year, it just feels like a top 7 pick for a really good scouting team is almost always going to result in a really good prospect. So I would like to grab some future assets in these trades. So let's grade the Blazers trade. I don't know if you guys already did, but grade the trade. Okay. Let's see where we go with this one. Yikes. A D, D plus, B, B minus, A. Wow, for real? Oh, you guys really hate this trade, eh? I'm curious what the difference here is because I personally value OG more than Pascal, so I would have thought that the previous trade would have been worse, but I guess people here just really hate the concept of Yusuf Nurkic coming back. Yikes. F minus from James Welsh. You got to be kidding me, man. Come on. 3 would need a center back. I mean, do they really? Isn't Pascal like a forward slash center and they have Drew Eubanks and they can always sign somebody? Need more value for Pascal. I don't think so, man. More value. More value than Shaden freaking Sharp. That's like a 7th overall pick and 2 future draft picks. I mean, Yusuf Nurkic is not like he's not a terrible player, man. Like I think you guys are like severely underrating him. I know he doesn't fit with what we're trying to do, but he's like Let me just pull up Yusuf Nurkic for a second here. I'm curious myself, like, where is he in terms of analytics? So, hang on one second, guys. Let's pull this up. Maybe this will make you guys change your mind. Maybe it won't. I have no idea. But let's just figure this out real quick. Okay. I'm not. Seems. Okay. Here we go. So, I mean, yikes. That's crazy. So, according to Crafted, he's a 54th percentile offensive player and a 98th percentile defensive player. Now, the defensive impact of him is probably scheme related, that they hide him a lot. And it's kind of hard to take this seriously that a defensive liability is so good on defense. But size is important. Deterrence at the rim is important. So let me just pull this up for you guys. Hang on real quick. I'm just going to put this up on the screen. You can just sort of see where Nurk is offensively and defensively. So in terms of just defense, right? He deflects the ball. He's pretty decent around the rim. He contests shots. He blocks shots. In a lot of ways, I mean, from the screen setting perspective, like, you might be surprised. Like, I know he doesn't really fit with how we try to play, but he's not a bum. I feel like people are treating him like he's a bum. He's efficient around the rim. He gobbles up rebounds, and he's a solid passer. Yeah, I don't know. I think you guys are underrating Yusuf Nurkic, and I don't like him. I've never liked him. Never liked him, but he's not a bad player. He's a starting center in the NBA. All right, moving on to the next trade. I'm trying to move through these a little bit faster. Here comes the one that everybody wants, which is, yeah, it's a crazy first. It's a crazy deal, but I think it works. I think it works on a lot of levels for them. Now, they would have two guys whose natural positions power forward, so naturally this would require them to have some sort of commitment to playing Jonas Valanciunas off the bench or shifting Pascal Siakam to small forward, which I don't think is unreasonable. Like, I don't think people see Pascal as a small forward, but in a lot of lineups, he's operated as a small forward. For us, he's been sort of a point forward. I know it's a little abstract, but I think the Pelicans want to be big. They have a lot of the same draft philosophy that we do, plus size, plus size. Well, a lineup of CJ, Brandon Ingram, Pascal Siakam, Zion Williamson, and potentially Herb Jones, or you could alternate and have Jonas Valanciunas in there, or you could potentially on occasion run Pascal at point. I mean, there's the lineup potential is off the charts. Obviously for the Raptors, why do you do this? Well, clearly it's because you get Trey Murphy and Dyson Daniels, and you get that 2023 first. From the Pelicans, it will not be a really good pick. Obviously, if you give them this trade, they're going to be finishing, with a 20th or 22nd, 23rd pick. But for the Raptors, this is a great target range for a couple of prospects I think are really good. Obviously, the real value upside here is that you get two players on a rookie contract that really fit in with your Vision 6-9. So let's see what the grade is for this trade. Okay, grade this trade. All right, grade this trade. Yeah, I didn't even mention Garrett Temple and Devontae Graham. I don't really think they're a huge part of it, but you're taking salary off the books for them. Really? D? For real? Um, I wouldn't be so sure that the Pelicans wouldn't do this. Okay, like teams have done crazier trades to get all in. Like, look, like I've mentioned this before, and I don't want to repeat myself, but if I had really pitched a trade like Jonas Valanciunas and DeLon Wright for Marc Gasol when he was aging out and it was very clear that he was on the decline, most people might have said, like, why would any team trade two young prospects in their prime that are, putting up better stats than this aging guy? Like, you never know. Like, when a team decides to move their chips into and cash their chips, like, I think, obviously, I think Trey Murphy is really freaking good. And there's probably some thought process here that they would really value him and try to keep one of those two guys. But they do have Herb Jones, right? And at some point, you do have to like give up something to get something. So the Raptors aren't going to do this with nothing. I could do this without the 2023 first round pick being attached. I could do this for like a 2026 first rounder or just a latter first rounder. C minus for the Pals, A for the Raps. I need that Lakers pick. Well, see, that's the thing, right? You can't get too greedy. So it's either going to be, you take Dyson Daniels and that 2023, or you take the Lakers pick and then you get Daniels or or Trey Murphy out. And I don't know if they would ever give up a chance to potentially draft Victor Wembanyama, just especially with how well he would fit into that core for a chance to get Pascal Siakam. I just don't think that any team with a pick that could be a top 2 pick in this draft. I'm not saying it will be, but it could be. I don't think they're ever getting rid of that deal. And in fact, in a lot of ways, that pick from the Lakers is a big reason why they would probably at least consider moving off of Trey Murphy and Dyson Daniels. Because look, every single team has to realize that from a team building concept, eventually every one of these players is going to need an extension. You're a small market franchise. You cannot afford them. Zion is on a supermax. Brandon Ingram's on like a huge deal. All of their players are on a huge deal. You're going to have to extend Herb Jones with the way that his contract situation's going. Like, there are a lot of teams that could look at, like, there are a lot of teams in the same boat as the Raptors where they have too many young players. They cannot extend them. And I think if you're the Raptors, I think this is the type of deal that could make sense. Okay, now I know that everyone on this channel is super high on Dyson Daniels, but trust me, he does not have the same value around the league as a Paolo Banchero, even though for me, he's like, in that conversation as one of the better young players in the NBA. He's a really plus size playmaker, like a jumbo creator. We talk about jumbo creators all the time. He's a jumbo creator. He's a really good defender. He's in like the 90th, 89th, or 92nd percentile as a good defender, as a wing defender, and he's one of the youngest players in the NBA. I think he's key to this, but I think Trey Murphy is the other key to this. So I would value those two guys. But if they insisted on keeping one of those guys, I would insist on the Lakers pick, and then the deal would probably fall apart. So I think you got to get something. You got to give something to get something. And I think if you're the New Orleans Pelicans, I think this is a fair value for Pascal Siakam. All right, moving on. So we've got 4 trades out of the way so far. Wow, we're crawling. We're an hour in. We got 4 trades. All right, we got trade number 5, which is the Chicago Bulls. Now, this is, in a lot of ways, a great trade for the Bulls, and probably if you're a Raptor fan, you're looking at this like, what the hell? We're going to take on. What are we really getting here? Well, Kobe White expiring. I think it's a free trial. It's kind of like with Gary Trent Jr., right? Trade it for Gary Trent Jr. See what you have in Kobe White. He is a former lottery pick. Patrick Williams, another former lottery pick. FSU, really come around as a shooter. I really like him. I think his defense has been a little bit overstated, but I think the Raptors could use him. He kind of fits in with your Vision 6'9" plus wingspan. I think Ayo Dosunmu is the one player in this deal that I just identify as like, that's a Raptor. He's long, he's twitchy. I like him a lot, and I think he really fits. And like, if you're banking on youth and upside, I think this is a player that you can just go with and hope to develop and hope to grow. You get the 2023 first round pick. from the Portland Trail Blazers that could be as high as a lottery pick. I don't know. I don't remember offhand if it has lottery protection on it. And then you get the 2027 first round pick from the Bulls, which again, future upside. Could it be a really good trade? If the rumors are correct, and you get Nikola Vucevic expiring contract, if the rumors are correct, right, on Fred VanVleet, what his value is, and Gary Trent Jr., what his value is, I think this is roughly fair value. For the Bulls, you get to keep Levine, you get to keep DeMar DeRozan, you get to get off of Nikola Vucevic, who hasn't been that great for you this year, and you get a point guard. Like, you get a point guard who's kind of from the area. He's from Rockford, Illinois. This is a homecoming for Fred VanVleet for the Raptors. I know they like to, help guys, right? Help guys get into good situations for themselves, kind of reunite. Yeah. I I'm higher on Pat Williams. Yeah, look, I'm high on a lot of those players. Like, I think Patrick Williams, I think they both sort of fit. Um, yeah, hold on. Let me just check one thing. I just want to make sure that Vucevic was not extended. Contract. Just double, triple check here. Okay, perfect. Yeah, he's not extended. So rumors are that he wants an absurd contract extension, if I recall correctly. So someone told me that at some point in the last week that I trust. So if you have no intention of extending this guy, probably not going to keep him. Um, doesn't Pat have history with Scottie? Um, Not really, but they do have the same alma mater, which is Florida State University. Yeah, I mean, he's a role player. He's not going to project to be a star, but I think he's a role player that really fits with how the Raptors like to play. Alrighty. Okay, moving on to the next trade. First let's grade that trade. So let's grade that. I mean, we saw a few, but let's just get to keep the format consistent. Sorry, was there a super chat at some point that I'm not seeing? Someone said super chat. Give me a second, guys. Just want to make sure that I'm not missing something here. Can you let me know if there was a super chat that I missed? Because I'm not seeing it. Can I do a poll? Let me check. Hang on. Oh shoot. Yes, I can. I can do a poll. That's amazing. Okay, thanks for doing that. Um, okay. So here's the poll question. Would you do this trade? Oh, that's sweet, man. All right. Let's do this. Boom. We got it. Sweet. Oh, Sean, thank you so much, man. I'm not seeing them because I think there's so many comments, but um so hold on. So let me try to understand this. So the Lakers pick, which pick are we talking about here? So the Lakers pick from New Orleans. Okay, so it is a swap, the higher of the two picks, but not with us. So when the Lakers made the deal with New Orleans, if New Orleans transfers, it's still going to be a swap with New Orleans. So it sort of transfers that way. Because the Lakers would then have to agree to swap with us, right? So they made the deal with New Orleans, so it doesn't transfer. It remains the best of New Orleans and Lakers pick. That means also that if New Orleans just starts to aggressively tank right now, we would get the higher of the two picks. Yeah, yeah. So it's the higher of the two picks between the Pelicans and the Lakers. So if the Pelicans trade that swap right, we then get the higher of the pick between the Pelicans and the Lakers. If that makes sense. Okay, perfect. Was there another question, Sean? Sorry, I'm not seeing the super chat. Like, I don't know where it is. Like, I'm trying to scroll back as hard as I can, as hard as I can, but I'm not seeing it. So bear with me, guys. I'm a one man army, and I'm sadly there's. I mean, I'm not sadly. I'm very. Here we go. Found it. There we go. And what was the second question? Man, I really need to figure out a way to be able to see the chat while I'm seeing the other screen. Okay, I'm gonna do just Sean, if you don't mind, ask me the second question that you sent a super chat for right here, and I'll answer it right now, and then we'll get to the remaining five deals or the remaining five trades. Yes, dual monitors. Yes. Okay, cool. I'll do that on the next trade for sure. Um, I actually do have dual monitors on my other setup, but I do everything on my laptop here in this room. I have two offices. Ironically, I do have a second monitor right there that I could easily use. That's a good point. I'm gonna do that next time. All right. Use an iPad. I could also use my phone, right? I could be able to see the chat on my phone. Um, yeah. Okay. Let's get this. Yeah. You know what? I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna set up my second monitor tonight. Okay. Oh, thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it. Okay. Um, moving on to the next one. This trade is Gary Trent Jr. to the New York Knicks. Now, I'm not sure how people are going to feel about this, but this is a very, are the Knicks interested in Gary Trent Jr.? It's a good question, right? I mean, they should be. They certainly should be. So, I think he can provide a little bit more than Yvonne Fournier. I also think that this allows the Knicks to get off of Fournier's contract. Now, would they do this for a Gary Trent Jr. rental? That's debatable, right? That's debatable. I think that depends on how much they see this upgrade being worth it. But from a youth perspective, I think that, I mean, at least the analytics say that Gary Trent Jr. is a vastly significant player and he's on an expiring deal. They can obviously re-up him this offseason. They would retain his bird rights by trading for him now. And if they don't trade for him now, they don't have his bird rights. They would have to use they can't sign him with a mid-level exception because he'd be totally priced out of their range. So I do think that I see the upside for them doing this. The Washington Wizards pick and the Dallas pick, neither of those picks figure to be extremely high lottery picks. So, and I'm not positive, but I think that Washington pick might be protected. I can double check it right now. So let me just put this in the chat and I'm going to okay. Start a poll. Okay. So Gary to New York. A, B, C, and D. I can't add F. It can only I can only get 4, unfortunately. So I'm just starting a poll, and you're gonna have to grade it between A to D. And if you just really absolutely hate it, and you have to, go with an F, then just write F in the comments. Kuato from Mars, thank you so much, man. Appreciate the super sticker, always. Okay, so the poll is officially up. Okay. Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to keep up with this chat here and struggling hard. Okay. Wow. I'm curious, like, how do you think that's an F for New York? I mean, guys, bird rights are a thing. Like, they do matter. By the way, like, dope avatar there, DC. Love it. Still shout out Super Chat Sean again since you missed it. Yes, shout out to Super Chat. Sorry guys, I'm getting a little bit confused with these super chats. Why am I not seeing them? Did he send another one? I'm not like, oh, Simon Phoenix, F for us. I really don't appreciate it, man. Washington pick 2 protected. Um, let's see how this poll is doing. Wow, people really hate this, eh? So D wins it. That's crazy. Wow. Okay. I mean, I don't think it's a look. It's really hard. I gotta say, it's really hard to create. Okay, if you hated that one, you're gonna hate this one even more. Okay, here comes the don't kill yourself, guys. This is yeah, like this is gonna piss off a lot of people. Okay, alrighty. Now, why in the world would the Raptors ever do this trade? Um, I think I wish I hadn't. Like now that I see how much you hate the okay, 3 first round picks. That's why you do it. You do it for 4 first round picks. So the theory here is that Cam Reddish is someone that has upside and potential that you could potentially bottle into something, right? Obi Toppin is a guy who isn't bad, right? He's not great, but he's not bad. I think he's a role player. I think that he works. Isaiah Hartenstein, again, like, all this talk about Jakob Poeltl, and I honestly think Isaiah Hartenstein is a younger version of a guy who does a lot of the same stuff. I think he has a lot of passing potential. I think he's on a really reasonable contract here. And this has Rudy Gay trade vibes all over it because I think you're getting back at least 3 of these players have so much value for a team around Scottie. I think Cam fits. I think Obi fits. And I think Evan Fournier, I know people don't like him, but he's a movement shooter. And I know that he's not great, but he's not ball dominant. And this is one of those weird trades where it could actually make you a little bit better in the short term, but you retain 3 first round picks and now you have 4 first round picks in 2023. So whatever you end up making up for in terms of added wins because you will win a little bit. Just being honest, like Isaiah Hartenstein impacts winning a lot, in my opinion, especially if you start starting him. Like he's young enough right now that you're getting back 3 young players in this deal. None of them are worth as much as O.G Anunoby, and probably none of them are worth as much as Gary Trent Jr. But do I even want to do a poll for this? It's going to be like straight Fs. You guys are going to hate this one, aren't you? Okay. I'm just going to create a poll anyway. All right. Okay. Let's create a poll here. I'm going to add F as an option just because I have a feeling a lot of people are going to take F with that one. Take Gary out of the deal. Okay, I mean, we haven't adjusted any deals so far, but I think if you take Gary out of the deal, you're going to have to take a first-round pick out of the deal because I don't think that any team in their right mind is going to give up 4 first-round picks for O.G Anunoby. And Malachi Flynn doesn't really have a lot of value right now. So I don't know, man. Yeah, I mean, look, these deals are not mutually exclusive. It doesn't mean that because you do one of these trades, you can't do another deal, you know? Dallas can lose 20 in a row, right? Not likely. Um, yeah, honestly, if you want to suck, like keeping those guys seems pretty crucial. Really. I mean, dude, I think you got to look at first round picks differently, right? Here, you're taking 2023 first round picks. Like that 2025 Milwaukee pick, it's not that valuable in my opinion, right? Milwaukee's probably still going to be really good in 2025. Uh, Granted, they have an aging core, so that 2025 Milwaukee pick is an upside battle. Like you could sell yourself on, okay, maybe it has some value more than what we think, but I'm not. All right, let's see how that poll is doing. Seems people aggressively hate this one too. C to D wins it with 33%, and that poll. All right. Okay, let's move on to the next pick. I think you guys will like the next trade a little bit more. There's a couple of trades coming up that I think are going to be a little bit more favorable for the Raptors side. Okay, so here's a trade that I could see working for the Raptors. Again, there are no picks coming back here. The real value coming back is in the form of 2 young players that I think are really, really underrated. Now, Denny Avdia has been on a tear since Rui Hachimura was traded. There's 2 ways to look at this. Number one, they are exhibiting him for a trade. And number two, a different way to look at this is that, they made that trade to basically, free up some spots for him. They're on a 6-game win streak, guys. The Wizards don't need to make this trade. Um, but, but, I think that they should and could make this deal. And I think that this is the type of deal that gets the Raptors a lot of young pieces that they could really build with. Number one, Corey Kispert, right? Shooters are valuable, and he's a good one. Vernon Carey Jr., a reunion for Scottie Barnes, right? A young big who hasn't really done a lot in the NBA, but they're former high school teammates and really good friends. And I think that it would be cool to just put someone in this team that he can sort of just have, around. I think that, there's a lot of guys in this team that, if I'm being completely honest, it doesn't feel like he'd really vibe with. So I think it'd be good to have some younger players that he could really help and nurture. And you never know, like he could just help motivate him, and that old connection could spark something in Vernon's career as well. I mean, I felt the same way about Jalen Suggs, right? Like Scottie could help these guys because he knows these guys. Denny Avdia is the creme de la creme here coming back. I think he's a really good defender. I think he's somewhat underrated offensively. He's a good passer. And DeLon Wright, the guy that I initially thought was gonna be better than Fred VanVleet, eventually gets traded for Fred VanVleet. So I like this deal a lot, and I would like it. So here I'm gonna put a poll here. So grade the Wizards trade. A, B. I'm not adding an F option here because if you think this is an F trade, like I'm sorry, I don't. Okay, so I've added the poll. Feel free to use the poll. We're getting a lot of A's. Finally, my ego needed this. All right, we're getting a lot of A's. Love it. Love it. I'm back in school. Yeah, got a lot of C's and D's and F's on that last one, so I'm really happy to be doing that. Okay, moving on, picking up pace here. The Utah Jazz send us okay, so this trade, why do the Utah Jazz do it? One, they are completely stocked with draft picks, right? They could see the upside. They have an all-star. They have an all-star in Lauri Markkanen. They have an aging point guard in Mike Conley, right? Who I think could really help us because he's stable and a really good veteran. And I think that he would really be a benefit to a lot of the young guards that we have on this roster, quite frankly. Delano Banton, Malachi Flynn obviously going out in this trade, but Delano Banton and Scottie Barnes could learn a lot from Mike Conley about how to run a team. And I think he'd be a really good example for them. The two things really coming back in this trade that I think are of value. Number one, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, a really good young player that I think could be, high upside swing for the Raptors. Cousin of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, if you believe in that whole thing. And also that Minnesota first round pick, the 2023 pick. Of course, I'm really big on adding assets from the 2023 draft. So I would like to, add as many of those as possible. Yeah, so I think this is a somewhat fair trade. Why did the Jazz do it? Well, they get a floor general who just put up a huge night against them. They get a guy who is just a little bit younger than Mike Conley. Well, not a little bit younger. He's quite a bit younger than Mike Conley, and he can sort of grow with that core. I think he really fits with what they're trying to do. And if I understand Danny Ainge as well as I think I do, I think he would value a guy like Fred VanVleet a lot. It just fits with the type of player that he tends to value. Same guy who drafted Peyton Pritchard, the same guy who drafted Marcus Smart, same guy who drafted Jason Tatum. Like there's a type, he has a type, and I think Fred VanVleet is his type. So that's where I see that working out. Okay, let's end the last poll and let's start a new poll. Grade the Jazz trade. Okay. Okay. No way the Jazz do this. Why not? Why would they not do it? It's way too late for them to aggressively tank. There's no way they're getting a bottom. They're not going to finish with a bottom six record, and they've built up a lot of momentum with what they've done positively. They have a really good They have several really good young players. They have a boatload of draft picks coming in from other teams. Why would they not do this? Minnesota's pick is an asset for sure, but they have plenty of other assets. Good question. The Minnesota pick, is it protected? Let me just double check. Jazz future draft picks. So per Pro Sports Transactions, the Jazz Minnesota okay, so Let's just check here. So the Jazz have Fanspo says that their incoming draft picks, Minnesota, it doesn't say protected. It has to be protected, right? Give me a second, guys. I just want to figure out the Jazz future draft picks here. I don't think it's protected, man. Can someone confirm in the chat, is it protected? The Jazz could get more for him. I don't know, man. It really depends on how you feel about Fred VanVleet. I don't think that they're lateral moves because they sort of reset. Like these are not tweaks, right? This is not like you got to look at the Raptors' past history, right? You have like a trade, like for instance, Norman Powell for Gary Trent Jr. You could look at that as a lateral move, but was it really a lateral move? Not really, because you traded a 27 or 28-year-old in Norman Powell, who's definitely on the wrong side of his prime. I mean, granted, he's done extremely well and he's played extremely well through that contract for what you were expecting to be a cheaper option, but he played himself into a pretty high contract for you in Gary Trent Jr., who was 22 years old. I think that swap sort of helps, right? So okay, so we got B. Cool. Yeah, I mean, like to those people saying this is lateral, like I think you might be underestimating Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Like he's a really good player. I really like him. Okay, now here comes a strange trade. I think you guys maybe weren't expecting me to go here, but I'm going to go here. The Toronto Raptors trade for Kyle Lowry. Okay, the growth is coming back. Now, why would the Raptors ever do this? Well, two things. Number one, Kyle Lowry becomes a pretty sizable expiring contract this offseason, right? So I think that helps. Number two, you put Fred VanVleet and Kyle Lowry, both of them, into places that they're comfortable with, places that they actually want to be. I don't think Kyle Lowry would have any problem coming back. I think he would like it, probably enjoy it. Mentoring the youth, I think there's some value to that. There's some value to be said for that. For Chris Boucher, this is the saddest trade of his life because he talked about how much Kyle Lowry helped him, and now he basically gets traded for Kyle Lowry, which means he has to continue playing with Fred VanVleet. And I think for the Raptors, the value really here is Nikola Jovic, who I think really does fit with what the Raptors are trying to do, especially off the bench, struggling for offense. I think he adds a lot of upside to them. And they struck gold with the last, late first rounder that they extracted from the Miami Heat in Precious Achiuwa. So maybe the Miami Heat will be wary of that. But I think at this point, the upgrade from Lowry to VanVleet for the Heat would be sizable. And I just think that Lowry, they could sort of reset their timeline, because right now their timeline is sort of in a mishmash between two timelines. Number one, you have the Lowry Butler timeline, and it's supposed to transition at some points to the Hero and Bam timeline. Now, the Heat are not necessarily serious contenders this year, despite the fact that, Kyle Lowry is having a hell of a season. Sorry, Jimmy Butler is having a hell of a season. So with Kyle Lowry struggling, they see the decline on him. They may not see him as a guy who's necessarily worth all the money that they're paying him. So instead of holding on to him unnecessarily, I definitely see a version of events where they could probably get rid of him and maybe they could kickstart and have a new timeline where Jimmy Butler is the one agent guy, and um and yeah. So let me put this up for a poll. So grade the Miami deal. Okay. Okay. There's the poll. You can definitely grade that trade if you'd like. Um, yeah, I would welcome Kyle Lowry back. It'd be a really good move for the Raptors. I think Nikola Jovic has flashed a ton of potential. Someone said, look at the other young center on the Miami Heat. Who are you talking about? Omer? I wouldn't, honestly. I like the shooting of Jovic, to be honest. And I promise I'm not just saying that because we come from the same country. Um, that makes Miami a lot better. I agree. I think it does make Miami better. I mean, and Chris Boucher, I'm not even mentioning Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher is better than Nikola Jovic right now. He's way better than Nikola Jovic. So that first rounder that they're giving up is nothing, right? Compared to what they're getting for this, like they become, I don't know if they become contenders with this, but with the way Jimmy Buckets is playing right now, with the way Bam is playing right now, with the way Hero is playing right now, if Duncan Robinson can get back, if Gabe Vincent is good, like I don't see why they don't have the talent to be at least very competitive in the East, especially if this Brooklyn situation falls apart, right? Thank you. Yeah, we're trying to go for really realistic trades here. I'm not trying to go for like super homer trades where, teams give up like 16 first round picks for Pascal Siakam. I'm trying to read the tea leaves from what I'm hearing in terms of what players are actually worth. And I'm trying to look at assets on other teams that I think might be undervalued, but might be really valuable to the Raptors. That's sort of how I would look at it, right? Thank you, Leanne. Appreciate it. Um, so Lowry has this year and then next year. So he becomes an expiring contract this offseason. You could easily, if you really wanted to trade him, you could easily do that. Or you could just hold on to him. I don't really see the point. We sort of did this with Antonio Davis, right? We brought Antonio Davis back from Chicago. I remember for a very brief period of time, he was expiring at that point. So, yeah. No, I honestly think it would reset the culture for this team to have him back. Like, I would get chills. Now, granted, I was not the biggest Kyle Lowry fan while he was here. I was a fan. I was not the biggest fan. I wasn't like some super Kyle Lowry nerd. I was when he first came here and, progressively as you know, he's not perfect, right? He's not perfect, but 2 years of Fred VanVleet, and I'm ready to go back. This is one of those things where you thought you could do better. You're like, yeah, a little bit overrated. He goes through these shooting slumps. He's declining. I don't want to keep him, etc. I thought he was overpaid on that last contract he signed with us, and he was sort of. But there's all this intangible stuff that he brings, and sort of like leadership and sureness. You didn't see Pascal Siakam. Well, that's not fair. Uh, Thank you so much, Noble Venom. Um, Thank you for flagging the super chat, guys. Clearly, I'm missing them here. Scrolling back, scrolling back, scrolling back. Is this the most engaged this chat has ever been? I don't think I've seen this many comments, and I'm having trouble like keeping up with them. I'm told Sean, you sent another super chat. I wish there was a way to filter super chats, like so I could just see the super chats. I apologize. I'm definitely missing a couple here. Hang on, I'm trying to go back. Duke's Rock says Kyle is a better passer and better vision over Fred VanVleet. Yeah, no debate here, man. I think you just want someone who can sort of help. Like there's an intangible quality to having Kyle Lowry where I genuinely believe that he can help a lot of your young players take the next step. I think he could probably help Scottie Barnes a lot. It really felt like when we drafted Scottie, I really wanted us to keep Kyle and we didn't. And I'm really happy you got Precious Achiuwa, but right now I think swapping these two would make a lot of sense. Okay, so that's it for my 10 trades. I'm going to get to my 2 bonus trades now. And my bonus trades, I got to say, I'm not sure how much you guys are going to like these, but let's try them anyway. Now, I do want to say that because Fanspo did not update Miles Turner's new contract, I couldn't do the trade on Fanspo, so I had to do it on ESPN Trade Machine. I want to make sure that I include that there is a draft pick coming back to the Raptors with this trade. So the first trade that I could consider for the Raptors is Miles Turner, Chris Duarte, Andrew Nembhard, and a first rounder, a 2023 first rounder, if I'm not mistaken. I believe the Indiana Pacers have their 2023 first rounder. And hold on, let me just check. Let me just make sure that that's true. Pacers picks. Um, yeah, so the Pacers have a ton of picks in the 2023 draft. They have their own, they have Cleveland's, and they have Boston's. So I think if you're the Raptors, you can sort of haggle over which of those you like the most. But um, hang on. And like my thought process on this is pretty simple. Miles Turner is an upgrade, and he shores up the one part of the floor that you absolutely suck at, which is guarding the paint. He's younger than Pascal Siakam. I think he's really underpaid for the next 2 years. He's a little bit overpaid this year because he renegotiated a salary, but he's underpaid for the next 2 years, making just north of 20 to 21 million. I think it offers the Raptors a really interesting player. He pops for three. He shoots a lot more threes than Siakam does, and I believe he shoots him at a decent clip. Chris Duarte provides, a young-ish, he's 25 years old. He's not super young, but a movement shooter that the Raptors can sort of build around or build with off the bench. Andrew Nembhard got off to a really hot start. I know the Raptors were interested in him. And you get rid of dead weight in Khem Birch's contract as well as Malachi Flynn. From the Pacers side, I think they weren't overly enamored in the past with Miles Turner, so there's some theories that okay, well, they gave him the contract renegotiation so that they could trade him for more salary coming back because they were under the salary cap. There's also a budding superstar on their team, and pairing him, especially when you keep all the other pieces that you have, which is including Ben Mathurin, including Buddy Hield, you keep all those players around and you just add Pascal Siakam into the mix. They have a bunch of young bigs that could easily step in and play center for them. I think this makes them a really fun and exciting team. So grade the trade. Grade the Indiana trade. Oh shit, I just wrote it in. Sorry guys. Start a poll here. Hang on. A, B, C, or D to And again, as always, if you want to grade it an F, you can just write F into the chat. Okay, I have one more bonus trade for you guys, and then we will get to the calls. Sorry, I'm just going to get to the chat here. Sweetness says that's a winner. Good upside with Nembhard. I agree. Like, he's good. I mean, that's interesting, right? I mean, I think, if I'm being honest, I think Pascal fits in better with what they're trying to do. Having two playmakers, in Tyrese and Pascal, who don't sort of tread on each other. I think Tyrese could really help Pascal become a better shooter. You could find him for better spots than Fred VanVleet does. Yeah. Like, I know there's all this stuff about OG to Indiana because he went to college in Indiana, right? But, like, I wouldn't put too much weight into that, to be honest. To everyone writing, so I don't know if the Pacers want OG more than Siakam. I'm sure, like, first of all, like, every team wants OG. I really do mean that. Like, there's not one team in this league right now that if you offered OG to them, that they wouldn't have a conversation with you. They would. He's a really likable guy. He's really portable, and he plays defense, and he's super underpaid, right? This is like saying every team wants Scottie Barnes. No shit, everyone does. I do, however, think that Pascal fits really well, especially with the renegotiated contract, right? For Miles Turner. I think them renegotiating that contract with Miles Turner, it just doesn't make sense to me unless they're looking to deal him. And there's no poison pill element to that contract. There's no restriction on trading him right now. So while there's a theory that you're overpaying him now because, you had cap space to negotiate that and you're taking dollars off his next deal, I think there's also a really good case to be made that they made that trade to sweeten him as an asset. Because right now, if you're a team trading for Miles Turner, you're getting a hell of a deal for the next 2 years. Like, you're going to pay half his salary this year. Okay, fine. It's going to be a lot of money, but that's the money you're paying to Pascal Siakam anyway. But for the next 2 years, instead of, Siakam at like max dollars, you're getting Miles Turner at like basically barely over what's going to be the new mid-level exception. I'm pretty sure mid-level exception is going to be like $16-17 million at some point. So he's still in his prime. He's a good shooter, really good shot blocker, one of the best shot blockers in the NBA. I think he really pairs well with what the Raptors are trying to do. And he's just like, he needs the ball so much less than Siakam does. I think it just really fits in with what Scottie likes to Scottie likes to play with. DC really likes the pick. All caps lock. Love it. We could get way more for Siakam. I wouldn't bank on it, buddy. I wouldn't. Like, I wouldn't bank on it. I'll be very surprised to hear from people what the rumored packages were for Pascal, right? I don't know who you compare him to, but I don't see a team out there. Like, you got to look at the fit, right? Why is OG so in demand? I think OG is so in demand because it's plug and play. You can't just plug and play Pascal Siakam, right? Like, you just really can't. Like, you're gonna have to restructure your offense around this guy. I don't see a team that's competitive that would want him to be their first option, and I don't really see how his skill set is necessarily elite as a second option, right? So unless you have a pass first option, a la a Nikola Jokic, or like, could I see him thriving in Denver? For sure, I could. I don't know how they absorb him, but that's the type of first option that he would need to play next to, because he could still be the top scorer on a team with Jokic. He probably won't be, but he could be on every other night he could end up putting 30 points per game on the board for you. So much of what he does right now, like, you're selling him as a valuable player because of his on-ball creation. For the other team to extract value from Pascal Siakam, they have to see him in the same role that the Raptors are putting him in, right? Otherwise, you say, okay, well, I don't want him to handle pick and roll as a lead ball handler or lead initiator. So what is he giving me? Is he giving me like super defense? No, probably not. Okay, can he still do it? Like he's done it in the past. Can he still do it? Okay. So he can uptick his defense a little bit if his offensive load isn't as great in theory. But now he's a non-shooter. Like I don't want to say he's a non-shooter like he's Ben Simmons. He's not Ben Simmons, but he's not like a catch and shoot guy. Like he's not like super portable like an O.G Anunoby. You can just stand in the corner and run off, some flares and like boom, he's just going to catch them. It's not that easy to integrate that guy, right? So I think at some point you have to look at, Marc Gasol, right? Just a guy who could just kind of stand in the post and play make in the middle. And then when he's not doing that, he super intelligently relocates to the top of the key to get out of the way from people. Guys like that are super valuable. I know everybody likes to look at 25, 8, and 6. That number keeps coming up, those three numbers, 25, 8, and 6, 25, 8, and 6. But you have to look at it from the other team's side. These teams are being run by elite basketball minds, right? Those elite basketball minds know what most casual fans don't know, which is that this 25, 8 and 6 is not going to project on their team. It's nice to know he can do it, but do you really think that a team that's elite, that has Tyrese Halliburton or James Harden or Nikola Jokic or Jason Tatum, like look at all the top teams in the league that would want to trade for this guy, right? Like, do you think that those teams are going to run him the same way the Raptors run him? They're not. They have no reason to. So yeah, he might. Like I don't know. There's rumors that they see him as a guy that they don't want to trade and that they would like to hold on to him. But okay, we're gonna end that poll. See what the results were. Seems like most people liked it. So the Indiana trade gets a 41% A grade. That's pretty decent. Steven Adams really, I think, helps the Memphis Grizzlies a little too much for them to really want to trade him. All right, here's my final trade. This is my bonus trade. All right, this one is just for shits and giggles. And honestly, I don't know why. I just had to do it. This is the trade that I've wanted to make the whole year. And would they make it? I don't know. But if they're trading, Kyrie Irving for what will potentially be, I don't know what they're going to trade Kyrie Irving for, or if they're going to trade Kyrie Irving. But there's a really good chance that over the next 3 to 4 days that if Kyrie Irving wants out, Kevin Durant is not going to stick around and just play with Ben Simmons, okay, and Joe Harris and Nick Claxton and Edmund Sumner. He's already made it pretty clear that he wants to play with another team. And if Kyrie Irving just flat out refuses to play the rest of the way, because that could happen. With Kyrie, it could happen. With Kevin Durant, that's not going to happen. But if Kyrie refuses to play and you refuse to trade him because you can't get the right offer for him, then you are wasting another half year of Kevin Durant's prime and you don't have draft picks. So I think that this trade helps to reset your timeline a little bit. You get Ben Simmons, Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, put that together, and hopefully, you can recoup something in a Kyrie Irving trade. And you have a really good young player, Nick Claxton. Does it work? Is it what they want? No. It's not preferable. But you do get two 28-year-olds to replace a 34-year-old. So I think it does reset your timeline quite a bit. It sort of makes them, it kind of brings them back to the team that they were prior to this. And I think right now there aren't like a ton of top 20-ish players. I say top 20-ish in Siakam, who are available for trade. So if they did want to trade Kevin Durant, I'm not really sure if Devin Booker's on the market. I think there's a restriction on, because of his contract type, they can't even trade for him. I don't know what else that they could really get that's a lot better than Pascal Siakam plus Fred VanVleet. So why would the Raptors do this? Given the state of their record right now, why the hell would they want Kevin Durant and Joe Harris? Well, one side of this is that they're not that far out of the playoff picture, and Kevin Durant is almost coming back. I also think that a team that a team with a shooter like Joe Harris and defender like O.G Anunoby, Pascal Siakam gone, Kevin Durant obviously replacing him and just balls out. Teams like this, like you integrate a guy like Kevin Durant who's naturally selfless, who is elite. You're adding two elite shooters and you're replacing two guys who, for the most part this year, have not been elite shooters. So I think immediately Scottie Barnes becomes unlocked with all of this, right? Like you're taking two of your worst shooters in Siakam and Boucher, and one of your worst performing shooters, granted one of your better shooters in Fred VanVleet, taking him out, and you're adding Kevin Durant and Joe Harris, two elite snipers, right? I think there's a chance the Raptors become the scariest 6th or 7th seed in league history with this. So that's sort of I'm just curious to see yeah, I agree. And OG does get his bigger role because, and I mean, look, what we saw with Yuta Watanabe, right? In terms of like the uptick in his efficiency. Well, you can see that with OG Anunoby. He can go from shooting 37% with Fred and Pascal to maybe shooting 43% with Kevin Durant because of cleaner looks, right? I just love this idea of pairing KD and Scottie and OG. I just love that idea. And while I would like to keep, Fred VanVleet in that mix because I think it would work, I also understand from the Nets' perspective that they would need to replace Kyrie and KD in this move. And this way, they can trade Kyrie for depth. They can trade Kyrie for the Lakers' depth and their future two picks. So in this deal, like you would probably get like a ton of contracts and players back. Like you would get depth back in this deal. And you also get, a little bit of Raptors depth here, which helps you be competitive this year because you don't have your draft pick. And no matter what you do, you're not getting back your draft pick. So there's no reason for you to tank, right? So I don't know. And also KD would probably take Christian Koloko's 35 jersey, to be honest. I don't think he's going to take 7. He has too much respect for basketball. So let me put a poll on the Brooklyn thing. Grade the Brooklyn trade. Okay. A, B, C, D. Okay, cool. Go for it. Let me know what you think of the Brooklyn trade. Getting a lot of A's. Love it. I don't think Brooklyn does this. I wonder. I wonder hard, right? Because I mean, look at league history when you've seen stars traded, right? I mean, it kind of depends on where Brooklyn's head's at. Would you have to add a pick here? Would you add a pick? Would you add a pick swap? Can you add a pick swap? There's a lot of considerations to be made here. Would you need to add Precious Achiuwa to this to make it worth their while? Would you do that, right? I don't know. But I do know that Kevin Durant has a hell of a lot of basketball left in his career. We're seeing LeBron go till age 38, and we ranked him as a top 10 player. I don't see why, with his smooth shooting and the amount of work that he puts in, that Kevin Durant can't be an extremely positive player for you next season and the year after. Where he'll be after that, I don't know. But I'll tell you right now that he's still a really good shot blocker. He's still an incredible playmaker, an incredible shooter, and I don't think any of those parts of his game, and he's still 7 feet tall, and I don't think any of those things are going to go away for the next 3 years. This is not a rental. This is not a win now move. Yeah, you want to win now. And I got to tell you, you enter a playoff series as a 6th seed or 7th seed with Kevin Durant on your team, you have a chance. Anytime you have a player like that, you have a chance at a championship. So would that be the weirdest season in NBA history where a team, at the bottom 6 of the league is ready to blow it up and then somehow a superstar becomes available, they tank, they trade two aspiring all-stars to get him, right? Like from the Brooklyn side, try to find a more competitive offer. What are you looking at here, right? Let me know in the chat. Like, what do you think is a team that could, like, give me a competitive Brooklyn offer right now? Because let's be honest, like Boston is not gutting their team right now. They're not trading Jalen Brown or something like that. They're not stupid. They're not going to like do this in the middle of the season. There aren't a lot of teams that are bad enough to absorb a guy like Kevin Durant. Look at all the teams around the league that are really bad, right? Like, and they have picks or whatever. Could New Orleans do it? Yeah, I think New Orleans could do it. I think New Orleans could definitely do it. I think New Orleans could, but I think they wanted Brandon Ingram. They don't have the salaries to do it. You know what I mean? That's a good point, right? But if you're the Nets, are you telling me really legitimately you prefer Brandon Ingram over Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet? I can see why, but like what's the huge Kawada from Mars? Thank you so much. Question for Rob in the chat. If Masai and management end up making no moves this deadline, would you consider that a failure? Yes, I would. I would consider that a massive failure. Let's get to some calls. I can explain why. And by the way, thank you for the super chat. As always, Kawada from Mars, much appreciated. And to anyone whose super chats I've missed, I promise I will go back through this chat. And if I missed it, I apologize. I haven't been paying as much attention to the chat as I should. And I will definitely shout you guys out for the and say thank you in the first pinned message under this video when it goes live. I think that it would be a failure because it shows a lack of direction, right? Like, I think you're like right now you're in a strange place as a team, right? Because you're not good enough to compete. This core has not shown you that they have been reasonably competitive. There was a mandate coming into this season that they needed progress on last year, that Scottie was going to be better, Precious was going to be a year older. They added Otto. They have that for a full year now. There was a lot of optimism coming into this year that this is a team that could take a leap into the second round for the first time, and that if the team did not take a leap into the second round, they had to reconsider this core. Well, this team not only has not taken a leap into the second round, they're not even in the play-in conversation. So if I'm grading all-time biggest disappointing Raptor seasons relative to expectations, it's hard to think of a season that's been more disappointing than this one. Maybe the year that they got Hakeem, because they had title aspirations that year with Carter and it just didn't work out. But granted, like, you could probably argue that the writing was on the wall on that one. Okay, now that we've gotten the polls thing working, let me ask the chat a question that I think is worth asking. Hang on. What's the most disappointing Raptors season ever? Oh, hang on. Most ever. Okay, there we go. So let's get a poll going here. What is the most disappointing Raptors season ever? So someone's saying DeMar's last year. What if he keeps Fred and tries to do a sign and trade, Rob? I think sign and trades are complicated because his biggest suitor, and it's been stated that the Orlando Magic are his biggest suitor, they don't actually need to do a sign and trade. They're under the cap, and they can very easily get further under the cap by waiving someone or trading someone right now or even trading someone then. So there will be a team right there that will not require you to facilitate a sign and trade. It's not quite like the Lowry situation where he had like one or two destinations and they all needed a sign and trade for him. And I don't see why Fred VanVleet helps you, right? I just don't. I don't see why he would help you in this case, right? So the sign and trade only works if the target destination does not. And then also like the Kyle sign and trade was a really weird thing because they did have some space if they had not picked up Goran's player option, I believe that year that they did have some space, but they couldn't give Kyle all the money he wanted. So ironically, if Kyle had taken less money, they didn't have to get rid of Precious Achua, if I recall correctly. But if I recall correctly, please correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. But okay, money back in the chat. All right. Um, okay, let's get some calls going. I'm gonna list the link here. We have Tonius waiting. So that's our first call, and we're gonna try to wrap this chat up hopefully at the 3 hour mark because we do have a chat coming up later today too. Okay, so that's the link. Call in if you have something to say. Tonius, what's up? Thanks for waiting, man.
Hey, no problem, man. This is the longest I stayed for the live, so I call this a bit of an achievement. So I'd say the dream scenario, after this whole trade deadline is, okay, some of these chat people won't agree with this, but I would say Gary, Fred, Pascal, Birch's corpse, and they're all gone for whatever players we're moving forward. Maybe one intangible young veteran, probably around 27, 28 years old, and more picks that could fulfill our bench. And I'm thinking what's going to happen after that is we're going to win too much because these pieces we get back are just fitting too damn well, and we all just share the ball, and it's so awesome. And we cost ourselves a lottery spot because of all that. But I do think realistically, when we do make our trades, I think it's going to be more like 80 to 75 cents on the dollar. And, we're not going to get a very high pick probably in exchange. But again, I think we still move forward after that.
So you think this has like the potential to backfire like the Rudy Gay trade?
Backfire. Oh, in terms of like the positives, quote unquote, that's like it has a small percentage of it. But I'm also going to enjoy it if the young assets that we have get back, if they just cause our team to click and we just everybody just shares the ball. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to enjoy it even though we lose our draft position to get Scooter Wemby.
Okay, so among the trades that I listed out,
Yeah.
Are there any that you really liked or any that you really didn't like?
Yeah. The one that was very intriguing is the one that can reunite Scottie and Pat Williams together, because if Nick Nurse fails with that pairing of Pat Williams and Scottie, we're just going to hire that FSU coach because
Leonard Hamilton?
Yeah.
That would be great.
And then another one is just super intriguing, but it is again a high risk one. I do find is Suggs and Isaac, because Suggs could provide you the potential. Isaac, I think he replaces Ibaka as a locker room preacher, but again, he does if his knees heal up and all the prayers to him, then he can become an absolute defensive menace that we would like to have. Another thing I want to point out is that my intention of Gary to be traded kind of increased the last two games, because if you could remember watching those two games, there was these 2-0 fast breaks that happened. Gary had Delano right in front of him, and then Delano just came back from this injury. The guy needs some encouragement, and Gary just had this open dunk and took it and just looked past Delano. I was like, come on, man, how can you do that?
I actually caught that too, and I wasn't thoroughly impressed with that. And I think what added insult to injury on that was Jack Armstrong sort of giving it a vote of confidence. Sort of saying how he said, oh yeah, well, Gary's, like looking for more points, and, sorry, Delano, it's not your place now. And it's just like, that mentality is so warped and so stupid, and it's so it epitomizes everything that's wrong with this team right now.
Yeah.
Every single player that I would like
It's
back in a trade is the exact opposite. Like
hmm
is like not with that mindset.
Yeah.
Play for each other, play together, and if you end up winning, so be it.
Yeah.
At least we can watch beautiful basketball, because I think the worst part about all of this is it's uncertain. Like
hmm
what is going to happen? It's constant dread for Raptor fans. Which day is like one of our favorite players going to get traded? What is the direction? You know, Masai and Bobby have been oddly quiet this year. Like there has been no reassurance at all. There's been like no, let me do a sit down with Tim McAuliffe and just, you know, briefly lay down that I still believe in this core. There's been no vote of confidence, right? There's just been nothing but rumors, and they've let them walk. Like there's a rumor about Scottie Barnes not working hard in the offseason and Raptors looking, you know, sideways. They didn't even come out and squash that. We're just left to battle it out on Twitter as a fan base. Does it feel like being kind of like left in the dark as a fan base? Yeah. And usually when that happens, it's because in my opinion, it's because they're playing their cards a little too close to their chest. They don't want to add anything or to subtract anything. They're just letting things simmer and letting things, you know, sort of play out. And I think that this whole like Messiah gets a bit of a bad rap for being too prone to evaluate. Well, I think 50-ish games now, I think there's been a lot that he could say concretely that he's given this team a chance, and it has
Yeah.
not worked.
Because I think it's. I think also I believe this is a bit of a kind of like a more uh, like a diplomatic way to kind of end this era if it has come to it, because you can't have like Masai and Bobby just say like, oh, I'm gonna trade you, Pascal and Fred, like now because you're pissing me off. Like you have to give those actual the main contributors to the championship like at least a good exit. I mean, at least their trade value is high enough so it doesn't rub their agents the wrong way, and then it
I
still
think
gives
they've
them
been given
that.
all the opportunity in the world, man.
True.
I really do.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you have to have a good front office that doesn't personally attack their players, because we've seen teams do that, and then it just
Hey, I mean, like, look, I would much prefer a front office that's quiet than a front office that's leaky.
yeah.
Okay,
Like,
and you know, like the Brooklyn Nets, Joe
mhm.
Tsai, Sean Marks, like that's been a very leaky front office so far, and I'm not a fan,
Oh
right?
yeah.
I think players sort of hate that.
hmm
They hate playing in environments like that, and we're seeing the dysfunction that's played out with Ben Simmons, with Kevin Durant, with Kyrie Irving. At some point, you know, when you have three disgruntled stars, it's not just yeah, you picked three guys who are a little prone to being sour, but I think
Volatile.
also it takes it takes two hands to clap. You know, at some point you do have to say like, what are we doing here as well, right? So, are there any trades that you absolutely hated?
Let's see. I guess there maybe was that one of the iterations of the Portland trade, but then
Mm. Was it the Pascal one or the OG one?
I think it was I think it was the OG one. I think it's just the picks weren't that good enough, but that felt like a realistic avenue that was going to happen
Hmm.
if we actually do that trade. And then I wanted them to give us like, if this was going to happen, I want the 23. I want their 23. And
I
then
don't think they can give up their 2023. If I'm not mistaken, it's because the Stepien rule. So I
oh,
got
that's
the
right.
notification
Yeah.
on the thing. So
Okay.
I could be wrong, but according to Fanspo, they can't give up their 2023 pick.
Okay. Okay. They said that there.
So until the trade deadline. So you do have the option of, you know, revisiting that OG trade in the off season, but
No, they were.
I just rather do it now. If you're gonna move off of him, move him now. Like don't because he's not helping you lose.
Yeah.
That's for sure. He's one
Yeah.
player who's definitely adding wins and not losses right now. Even if the box plus minus does not agree with that, I refuse to believe that playing OG helps you lose. So yeah. Anyway, Tonius, I really appreciate the
All right.
call. Thanks for tuning in, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Thanks for the entertainment.
yeah, my pleasure.
All right.
Yeah, cheers,
Okay.
man. We got Lane back in the house. Lane, what's going on?
What's up? How you doing?
Not bad.
I'm gonna be honest. I just joined about 10 minutes ago. I came on the back end of the KD discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And my only worry is that if they trade Kyrie, they trade KD, they're not going to be looking for players that are going to win them basketball games. They're going to be trying to find their way to get back into the lottery. Um,
But they can't get into the lottery.
I,
They
I
don't. They're not going to get back their own pick.
oh, you are right. You are right. So they're
I
playing.
promise. I promise. I spent more than 5 minutes thinking about this. Yeah. So they
I
have to be competitive this year. That's kind of the consequence of trading away a whole bunch of lottery picks. Is you really don't have a downside. Like there's no upside
right.
to losing. So they're like from a business perspective, what they need to do right now is they need to field a competitive roster.
Hmm.
And while they do not necessarily need a point guard back, because they have Ben Simmons and they could easily play Ben Simmons at point if they wanted to, I think they've found something with Nick Claxton, Ben Simmons up front, and having Pascal Siakam added into that with Fred VanVleet. I think that makes you a really interesting team in the Eastern
Yeah,
Conference. It doesn't make you Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving led Brooklyn Nets championship contenders, but I think it makes you competitive. And I think they would settle for that given the fact that they would then have four players they can build around.
yeah. I would agree. I don't think that Fred would go in that trade if they were to get Katie. I think it would be Gary instead. Um, and I think the way that the front office would try
You
to
think
sell
they would
it,
prefer Gary to Fred?
yes, 100 younger. I think their front office is smart enough. They see
I mean,
they
if their
Fred
front
where
office is smart, Fred VanVleet is a much better player than Gary Trent Jr.
young young wise though. I mean, you're pairing up with Simmons, you're pairing him up with Claxton, and then Pascal is the guy that's kind of leading, kind of like this roster right now, but with the bench. I
Hmm.
mean, and the Raptors front office will try to sell it as this is our Kawhi 2.0. DeMar, Pascal, right? Jakob, Gary, and then here we are. We're getting back KD. I seriously, I would do that as someone who really loves Pascal Siakam, who loved him coming out of New Mexico State. I celebrated that pick when Bleacher Report gave it a D minus. I was like, "There's no way they're gonna regret this." I didn't think he'd be this good, but I loved the pick. I would welcome that trade openly, but we would have to get a bench. We would have to do something not very Toronto Raptor like. We would have to go out and sign a bunch of guys on vet minimum deals each year. We don't really do that, but we would have to do that. Um, but yeah,
I mean, we
that's how they're
signed
gonna sell.
Wancho to a vet minimum deal,
Well, I mean, like,
and one could argue we probably should have signed Kem Birch
yeah,
to a vet minimum deal. We just gave
yeah.
him $6
Oh,
million for nothing.
Kyle Lowry got him that $6 million. Um,
Yeah,
I mean, like, kind of like a Royce O'Neal signing, or like, I don't know. I'm gonna get like Seth Curry on the low. I'm just trying to think of players that they have right now that they've built around KD. We would have to try to replicate that. And
well, I
Toronto,
mean, here's the thing: players want to play with KD.
exactly. That's my
Players want to play with Scottie Barnes. That's the feeling I get. Young players, at least, would like to play with Scottie Barnes. Who doesn't want to play with a guy who finds them open underneath the basket and helps them pad their stats?
But not only that, it's the whole AAU era of basketball. All these guys have
That
known
too.
each other since they're like 14 years old. So like
Absolutely,
they're all friends. I mean, even the guys in the
absolutely.
second round are all friends. Like Josh Christopher the other night. Like my point was, in the last call,
Hmm.
when Josh Christopher went off because he knew his buddy was on the other team. Like these guys have like a little like kind of like get back at each other. It's a
Oh
competitive friend.
yeah, I mean, look, there's so many players that have either played with Scotty on USA basketball, played with him in AAU, played against him in AAU. We're talking R.J. Barrett, we're
Mhm.
talking Precious Achua, we're talking Cade Cunningham, we're talking Evan Mobley, Jalen Green, Jalen Suggs. Like my God, De'Aaron Sharp, Vernon Carey. Like my God, like I could literally list out a field of about 55 players that are deeply connected in a good way to Scottie Barnes.
Yeah.
All of those players are just going to come up, and then as he does more commercials and he goes to more league events and he's doing like the All-Star weekend, that's another event where he's going to be in the locker room with those guys, and he's not someone who takes a day to win over someone. He takes about 10 minutes to win over somebody. So all of these seeds get planted in people's heads. I guarantee you that the real basketball players, like I don't care how the media feels about Kevin Durant, basketball players love Kevin Durant. I have never met an NBA athlete that did not rate Kevin Durant like really highly, talk glowingly about him, talk about how much he respects them, how much he respects the game. He's a guy who shows like his opponents a lot of respect. And I think that carries. It's not like Dylan Brooks, where half the league would want to shoot him, So I think that when it comes to those veteran minimum type of deals that you're alluding to,
Mhm.
that's the type of goodwill that carries a long way.
Exactly,
You know what
and
I mean?
that's something we haven't done in the past. Even the championship year,
Hmm.
nobody wanted. I mean, granted, it was late in the summer
Hmm.
anyway, but nobody was going to come because they were so uncertain about Kawhi. Like there was talks the day he was traded, would he just sit out the whole year in Toronto?
He's a bit of an isolationist too. You know, he's a bit of a pariah, if you will, right? See, I say like there are guys who are connected, and then there are guys who are disconnected. Pascal Siakam, I would count as disconnected. Fred
Oh
VanVleet,
yeah,
somewhat disconnected. Kawhi Leonard, somewhat disconnected.
it's almost that old era still. I mean, where some of these guys, 28 and up, they kind of, it's not the AAU era. Let me put it that way.
Well,
Where
LeBron is very connected. Carmelo
he's
is very
connected,
connected.
but they're
Um,
we're talking top 75 players of all time now.
Kawhi is a top 75 player of all time, and it just said he's disconnected, and so is
Yeah,
Giannis, and he's also disconnected.
but that's
I think it's just a personality thing, right? It's like some
yeah,
people they just like to isolate. I was just watching a documentary about Prince, the musician Prince.
yeah.
He was an isolationist. He's just someone who liked to be by himself,
Some
right?
guys live on social media. Some guys don't even maybe post once every
It's
3 years.
not even about social media. It's about people. In my opinion, sorry to like. I'm not trying to just completely cut off what you're saying, but I
Yeah,
think that it has a lot to do with like, are you naturally welcoming of others? Do you spend time with others in peace, or do you spend time alone in peace and then you just put up with being around other people? I think Kawhi is more to the latter side, right? Giannis, he prefers to train by himself, right? But guys like Paul George, part of it is Team USA, right? Part of it is Team USA where you get connected. You'd be surprised how many connections there are between guys like they're godfathers to each other's kids. It's a fraternity. The NBA is a fraternity. It's a 450 player fraternity. And to be completely frank, 280 to 300 of those players are completely outside that fraternity. Okay. I'm just being real. I'm being honest. That's just how it is. Um, there's just no chance in hell that, someone like Malachi Flynn is as connected around the league as someone like Cade Cunningham.
no,
They just didn't come up in the same, and it's like, it's kind of crazy to me because it's also the agencies. The agencies have like this sort of, clicks, and then they introduce guys, and then they do all those brand deals, and there's all this sort of teaming up and buddy shit, right? And I'm not even against it. I'm just accepting it as what it is. And what I'm saying is that these top five guys, I mean, some top five guys, people like to brush all top five picks as like one thing. They're not, right? Like a guy like Marquise Chris was a top five pick. I assure you, he was not very well connected. But Scottie Barnes is very well connected. For whatever reason, he just is. He knows everybody who's anybody, and he makes friends fast. Like I'm pretty sure, like when he's, you know, uh, going up against Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, that somehow like they're gonna get each other's numbers at some point and probably stay connected somehow. So he's not yeah, I just think him and Kevin Durant would make a very compelling pitch to
yeah.
a world of, superstars,
Well, I
or
mean,
not superstars, but like guys who are on those minimum deals that can come in. Yeah.
I'm not even talking starting lineup, but you make that trade for KD. Your best five at that point is what? Fred, Scotty, OG,
No,
KD.
Fred went out in that deal.
Oh no, in my iteration, it's Gary instead.
Ah,
In
yes.
my iteration,
Right. Okay. So
so
it
you got
would be, yeah, so it would be
and
Scotty
Fred.
at point. Scotty at point.
You would have to move
Uh
to guard at that point.
no. You got to keep Fred, but I'm gonna move Fred at shooting. I'm gonna move to Fred to shooting guard
Yeah,
just
that's what I said.
because.
My fault.
Yeah.
Same
So
thing.
Fred to two. OG to the three.
Yeah, OG three,
KD to
KD
the
four.
four. Precious to the five.
Yeah, I
Pretty
mean,
much.
unless
That's
you're
a
able
great
to.
team. Like that's a great
Yeah,
team, and that's a scary team to meet in the playoffs. Like
and
I'm not saying that team could beat a healthy Bucks team, but if the Bucks are still like trying to figure out what to do with Chris
I
Middleton,
think so.
that team is toast.
I think so. You get shooters off the bench. I think so. I mean, I think
Yeah,
I think
and you have
you need
Joe
to
Harris coming back in that deal. So
give,
yeah,
give me yeah, Joe Harris and give me Gary Harris. I want him off the Magic so bad. I want him so bad. I know he's so slept on, And I know you may look at his statistics and be like, he's a below average defender, doesn't finish at the rim. We need a Grayson Allen type guy. And I don't want Grayson Allen because of his past, but we need a Grayson Allen type guy that just sits in the corner, sits on the wing, and hits threes at 40% rate. That's what we need.
I don't think we need sitting shooters. I think we need movement shooters.
They both do the same thing. I mean, move, sit, they screen. I mean, they're decoys. Gary Harris can also play.
We
the
have a
point.
lot of guys who stand in the corner and shoot. And I
I mean,
think that the movement element adds something completely different to it. That's why I was so big on Landry Shamet. That's why I just,
if only he could stay healthy. I mean,
if only, yes. I mean, yeah. So anyway, like, you didn't see the other trades, so unfortunately we
my
can't really.
fault.
No, it's not your fault. I mean, this is a. I'll flash a couple. Just you just give me. Okay, just look at the screen. You're looking at the
Yep.
screen, right?
Yep.
I'm just gonna give you all the trades, and you just very quick react. Give me a grade for the Raptors on all of them. Okay, quickly.
No picks.
No picks.
I don't like it.
So give me a grade.
C. B, but only because the protections. A minus.
Okay.
A plus.
Love it.
Vucevic concerns me, especially with his contract. So
Expiring contract.
I know it's expiring, but they'd want to bring him back. I feel like
I don't think we'd bring him back. I think it'd just let him expire personally. This deal is entirely about I
I,
would assume
yeah.
Patrick Williams and those two first round picks.
If we're playing just to let him expire, I would do a 3-way and send him somewhere else.
Mm,
But that gets more complicated.
yeah, no, I would try to move him for a second round pick or something. Yeah.
F. I don't like that. I love
F.
Gary too much. I love Gary.
Okay. Well, then you're gonna hate this one too.
I don't actually. I like the picks. I really like the picks. I like being secure.
You're getting rid of OG and Gary though.
I know. I'm really high on Hardenstein.
Okay, me too. Moving on to this one.
No, D.
You don't like Denny Avdia, eh?
I do like Danny, but I want picks. I'm sorry. I've seen what Masai can do with picks. I've seen he's turned late round picks into
Yeah.
guys like
I mean,
Norman
Denny's
Powell.
on a friggin' tear since Rui Hachimura
He is.
was, and they're winning with him
Yeah.
playing massive minutes. I think that's, I feel like so vindicated because I've been on the Denny hype train all freaking year, and now seeing him like ball out, and I'm like, fuck, we missed our chance.
Yeah, cultures are crazy in sports. I mean, you
Yeah.
take one guy out of the locker room, you add one guy in. You never know how guys are.
I've really been on the Rui Hachimura is the worst player, one of the worst players in the NBA for a while, and just don't like his game. And people are like hyping him up because he scored some points for the Lakers, and I'm just like, bro, he's making zero impact. They got the wrong guy.
Japan's gonna hate you if they hear that.
I don't care. I love Yuta Watanabe.
I like Utah too. Is that Minnesota pick unprotected?
Yes, it is.
Uh, I love Mike Conley as an Ohio State guy, so I'm
Me
gonna give
too.
it a B. I'm gonna give it a B.
Me too.
Uh,
Were you big on Greg Oden?
was I big on Greg Oden? I thought Greg Oden was Jesus when he came out.
I did not. I made a video about why he would suck. Okay.
I was 6 years old at the time. So
Okay, fair. What about this trade?
I just feel like the Lowry thing has kind of gone under the bridge. So just because of that, I wouldn't do it, but it's a solid trade. I'd give it a C. I'd be neutral on it.
This one, there's a pick coming back too, but I couldn't add it because it's not on Fanspo. But like, just they have 3 picks. Their
one?
pick coming back.
Which one?
The Indiana pick.
Okay, is it unprotected this year?
Yeah.
Yeah, in a heartbeat.
Okay, cool.
A plus.
Yeah, and then that's the one you saw. Okay, cool, man. Thanks a lot for calling in. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Have a great day, man.
Cheers. Okay, next up, SGE. SGE, what's up?
What's up? How are you, man?
Not bad. How are you?
I'm good. I just woke up and saw you were live, so I'm like, let me hop in. I think I'm same as last guy. I just saw the KD portion of the whole conversation.
However, you did just see me flash all 10 trades.
Yeah, I saw everything.
Thank
I
God.
I think one thing I'll say is I think the Raptors want to do nothing.
What?
I think they want to do nothing, and I'll explain. Like, give me. Let me
Sure.
land. I think they didn't know they want to do nothing now because of the Kyrie news. Not like they wanted to do nothing before. I think they
Okay.
want to get KD, but it's going to be very challenging to get KD in season because
Why?
I think he's playing for. I don't think the Brooklyn Nets want to do him like that, even though he requested a trade. I think they're going to want to see in the offseason how much they can get for KD. And then the Raptors need to hold assets to get KD. They can't be out here trading, Fred VanVleet or Gary.
Fred VanVleet is not an asset.
But you can do a sign and trade with him in the offseason. It's just very challenging to get
You
Kevin
can't
Durant
combine sign and trades.
now. Really? But how are you going to get
Yes.
KD? How are you going to get KD now? It's going to be very challenging to get KD right now with opposing offers from like the Pelicans or from other teams. I don't think Pascal even holds that much value, and I think we kind of agree on that.
I don't think he holds as much value as OG, but value is in the eye of the beholder, much like beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It depends on what you're trying to do. So, look, the Nets are trying to replace an offensive engine. Most other teams are trying to support their offensive engines. If you're trying to support your offensive engine with defense, then yeah, O.G Anunoby is by far more valuable, especially because you have to send out less salary to get him. But if you have a disgruntled max star who is your offensive engine and your other max player who is your other offensive engine both want out, then who better to take than Pascal Siakam, who's kind of a shittier version of that offensive engine? I'm just saying, for them, I don't see how they can beat this trade even with Brandon Ingram, unless of course they really value the youth that could come into that deal. Now, if you're the Pelicans, are you willing to deal Brandon Ingram, Herb Jones, whatever else you need to do? Because I'm telling you right now, from the Nets perspective, it's very difficult for me to say right now with a straight face that Brandon Ingram is better than Pascal Siakam. In fact, he's just definitively not. So it's a future ad. It's a future value that you're, saying like, okay, we can sell this to our fan base. And it's like, for your fan base, are they that much more excited about Brandon Ingram than they are about Pascal Siakam?
I think the two play-in games that Brandon Ingram played, or was it one? I can't remember. And then in the playoffs with against the Suns, I saw a guy taking tough mid-range jumpers, and that's something that's super hard to find in the NBA now. I saw a guy
taking tough mid-range jumpers. We have so many of them.
No,
It's literally our whole team philosophy.
Actually making them,
Oh, okay. That's the caveat.
Yeah.
You have to make them too.
Yeah.
Okay, I appreciate that. All right, thanks for clarifying.
And then I could just be high on Brandon Ingram. I can acknowledge that. I just think with the pick that the Pelicans have on top of that, you can really get Kevin. You could probably outbid the Raptors.
I think the team, I have to look at front office history, right? And I have to look at that from the perspective of how do these people think? So the question is, how have the Brooklyn Nets operated? Because I believe that Maya Angelou quote that I continuously repeat over and over again. Do you know it?
No. To hit me with it.
When people show you who they are, believe them.
No, that's facts.
So these people have shown you time and time again, whether it was the Kyrie and KD signing, whether it was the Steve Nash for head coach, whether it was the Ben Simmons trade or the James Harden trade, they have shown you time and time again that they value pedigree.
I think Josiah, yeah. I do think Josiah is of that ilk, yeah.
Yes. And I've met people like Josiah. I've read so much about him. He became a personal curiosity of mine this offseason. I did a deep dive, like almost like I could write a dissertation on Josiah and his entire business history and who he is. And he reminds me a lot of... No, I'm not even going to say it. I was going to say Vivek Ranadive, but it's a similar...
I get where you're going with it, though. I can see what you're trying to say.
Yeah, it's a foreigner mindset. I need to make a big splash. I need to have the best of everything. And there are people like that. I think we've all met people like that. Where you get, you say like $200 whiskey. They're like, no, 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 the $1,000 whiskey. Well, Pascal Siakam is the $1,000 whiskey here. He's an NBA champion. Joe Tsai will value that. Fred VanVleet is an NBA champion. He will value that. Pascal Siakam is an All NBA performer. Brandon Ingram has never been an All NBA player. The pedigree element of who guys have been in the past seems to be more valuable to these guys than who they are presently. Because presently, when they hired Steve Nash, he was not a good coach. Presently, when they traded for Ben Simmons, he was not a good player. But in the past, he was an all-star and a first overall pick. I think that this front office really gives a shit about pedigree. And because of that, that's why I don't think that they would value Gary Trent Jr. over Fred VanVleet. I think they would care about Fred VanVleet because he is an all-star and that they can sell that to themselves. There are some people who care about selling things to their fan base. I think this is a front office that needs to sell things to their owner who is in way over his head.
Yeah, because when you feel like an outsider or anything, like growing up, I wasn't the richest kid, right? So I'd do anything to hide that. When you don't feel like you belong, you'll do anything to make sure you look good. Does that make sense? So
no, I think you're hitting on something very apropos accurate here. And look, I was poor as well. I remember funny when I was I think I was grade 3. N64 was a really big deal, but my mom was very insistent. How old are you? 35?
No, I'm 27.
You're 27. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm 35. And when I was a kid, N64 was the shit. And I'm assuming when you were a kid, PS2 was the shit?
Yeah, man. PS2 is my console, man.
That's nice. Okay, well, I'm old enough that I still remember Nintendo and Super NES and Sega Genesis and Sega Saturn and all those.
Well, my dad did me dirty because I was begging for a PS2, but he came home with PS1, so I just had to rock out with it. But
oh, he messed you up. You know what's crazy? I actually picked up sorry guys, we're gonna go into console talk for 1 minute. I promise, Coach Mo, we're gonna get to you really quick. So my N64 story here is that my dad. Okay, so I didn't have an N64. That was the first thing. But a lot of kids in my class did. And I didn't want to be left out. I didn't want to feel left out. And so everyone was talking about this game that they got for Christmas. And I did something that I'm not very proud of. I lied. And I said, I also have an N64. And I think people became immediately suspicious because I was like the poorest kid.
Yeah.
And they were just like, there's no way this guy has an N64. And we didn't all hear about it. He would have blasted it, right? Because that's what I did when I got a nice gift or whatever. And so eventually, my buddy comes over to my house before school, knocks on my door. My mom lets him in. He's sitting around and he's like, where's Robert's N64? And she's like, what's an N64? Oh, so embarrassing.
Oh my God.
Because they would always ask to borrow games and I didn't have it. Anyways, long story short, I ended up getting an N64 like 2 years later. My dad got it for me before he passed away and played the hell out of it. There were a lot of restrictions on the games I could play. My mom would hide the games so that I couldn't play them all the time when she wasn't home. So that was annoying as hell. But eventually when I started making my own money, I started buying games for myself and eventually traded my N64 for a Dreamcast.
That's not now because I'm pretty sure, is a Dreamcast older than an N64?
No, it's newer. So Dreamcast was the bridge system between PS1 and PS2. And it was awesome. Okay. It was an awesome system. So fun fact about my Dreamcast is like they pretty much went out of business like a few years later and they stopped making games for it. And then the PS2 became like the thing. And then you're like, oh, the PS2 is way better than the Dreamcast. Why the hell did I do this? I ended up trading like 23 games, my N64, 23 games, plus my console, plus my controllers, for a Dreamcast in one game. So that was like fleeced. A massive trade-in. I kind of got fleeced. But the story has a happy ending because one day I was at EB Games when it was still EB Games. Yeah. And I'm standing there and this guy comes in with a Fat Farm shoebox. Okay? Fat Farm shoebox. And he's got an N64, GoldenEye, Zelda. He's got WCW NWO Revenge. He's got WWF No Mercy. Very high value game.
Oh man, yeah. That's
and he's got one more game. I can't remember what the fifth game was. And he got a controller, an off-brand controller, and a bunch of memory cards. And he brings this shoebox full of shit to the guy up front. And he's just like, "What can you give me for this?" And they're like, "Oh, you don't have the box?" And he's like, "No." They're like, "We can give you $3 for the controller." He's like, "Just take all of it." The minute I heard that, I was just like, "No, no, 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 no." I'm like, "I'll give you $5 for it." Can you believe he actually agreed? He gave me all of that for $5.
People used to get hoed going to EB games trying to trade shit in, man. Like, I remember I think I had Budokai Tenkaichi 3, and it just came out, and I'm like, I'm trash at this game. I'm going to throw it back to them.
Yeah.
They offered me $14 for a game that came out like a week ago that cost me $59.99.
They're crazy, plus tax, eh? Yeah. So, long story short, the value of that Fat Farm shoebox, which means everything in that Fat Farm shoebox today, is close to $400. That guy got fleeced. So
yeah, like some. I wish there's so many games and consoles I wish I never traded in because I would have so much money right now. But whatever. Listen, man, I think before I go, I'm just gonna say my 2 cents. I actually
yo, Scott play 2K. This is the greatest comment ever. He says EB games is Danny H. Yo, for real. This is the correct Scott plays 2K with a GOAT comment there. That's true.
What I'll say before I go is I know I'm a keyboard warrior in chat and I'm very opinionated, but I'll be honest, I think the Raptors are just in a fuck situation. I personally don't even know how to get out of the situation because I think you want to keep draft position. I think there's so many agendas happening at once. I just think it's a complete shit show.
I don't. I think they're in a great position personally and enviable position even. I just wish they had more draft picks. But yeah, I think they have a lot of I'll at the end of the show I will tell you why I think the Raptors are in a good position if you end up listening.
Well, I'll be in chat. Don't worry.
All right, man. Cheers. Bye. Peace. Coach Mo, what up?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, just give me a sec. That was wonderful video game talk, by the way.
Yeah.
I am 33 years of age. I was born in '89, and Nintendo 64 is the greatest console ever made.
I love N64. Yeah. I don't miss the blowing on the cartridges, but I still have 7 games. But yeah.
Let me tell you a quick story, real quick, for chat.
Yo, by the way, I didn't know you were younger than me. You sound like you're like way older than me for whatever reason. You're like very mature.
So I moved around when I was a kid from grade 1 to about grade 7. We moved every year. So
me too.
In the fourth grade, we had N64. My dad bought it. We had one game. We had this shitty Star Wars game. One of his kids at school, his console broke, but he had like 10 games.
Mm-hmm.
He was about to give it to a guy that lived on my floor in my building. They got into a dispute and they hated each other's guts. So he said, instead of giving it to you, I'm going to give Muhammad all my games until my console's fixed. That was the happiest day of my life. I had Diddy Kong Racing, Mario Kart, Super Mario 64,
Sweet.
Kobe Bryant courtside. Oh my, that console, greatest console. Your thumb is destroyed. It peels the skin off your thumb, the joystick. That controller is not ergonomically created for human hands, but.
DC saying, "Oh no, Rob, you need a new channel for console talk." Nah, we're good. We're good.
All right, it's over.
It's over. But yeah.
This whole trade show. So I want to get into your trades real quick. The Isaac and Suggs for Fred VanVleet. I take that. I do it. The OG Hart and Picks, Sharp Hart and Picks. I wouldn't do that. I just love OG too much, and I actually think OG is the only guy you can get true value for. Pascal for Nurk, Hart, Sharp, 2 firsts and a second. I take that. Just for clarity. Anything that gets rid of Pascal, I'm basically down for it. Basically, I'm down for it.
Pascal for 2 second rounders, done.
I'm not
Coach Mo, done. Yeah.
Pascal and filler for Murphy, Daniels, 23 first and filler. Hell yes, hell yes, hell yes. You hang up the phone and change your number.
Yo, you're funny. Okay.
Fred VanVleet and Gary for Vooch, Dusumo, Williams, and White and 2 first. I do it. I don't necessarily like pairing our Fred and Gary together, but it's funny because I'm going to show you some picks I did. All Pascal picks, by the way. And this was exactly what I did for Pascal, but I do that trade. Gary for the Knicks for 2 firsts, I do it. I think Gary's not worth 2 picks, so I do that 2 firsts. OG and Gary for filler and all those picks, that one's tough.
I don't know about like it's filler because I mean like depends on how you feel about Cam Reddish. Isaiah Hartenstein is a really good player. I think he's a really good player.
Hartenstein is the only one that you could consider non-filler. The rest are filler. I mean, Toppin, he could be a nice bench guy, but
I mean he could be, right. He's a former lottery pick. Cam's a former lottery pick.
We're doing all these picks for the first. Realistically,
I mean it's 4 fucking first round picks, man.
Yeah, that's what the picks are for.
Yeah, like you like you're pretty much okay. Like so, here's the thing. You're kind of doing this like 4 first round picks is kind of like what you get for a superstar, right? Like when superstars want out, forget the Rudy Gay pick swap situation, whatever, right? I'm talking like most of the time. This is more than the San Antonio Spurs got back for DeJounte Murray. This is probably about as much as the Utah Jazz. I mean, that's not true. No, the Utah Jazz got a lot for Donovan Mitchell, but let's just be honest. OG's not Donovan Mitchell, right? So like,
they got players they can play and they can keep. The Gobert trade was literally picks and just filler, just bodies to match the number, essentially.
What's the gap right now between someone like Fournier or Obi Toppin and whatever Colin Sexton is? I mean, you can say Sexton's better, but like not that much better. At least when he was with Cleveland. Like Cleveland was pretty much ready to walk from him for nothing. So I don't know. I think Lauri Markkanen, blossoming into an all-star, that's something Danny Ainge saw. I don't think that's something the Cleveland Cavaliers saw coming. If they saw that coming and they still made him available in that trade, like, I mean, sucks for them. But I there's 2 teams that gave away Lauri Markkanen, right?
Yes.
And I mean, neither one of them saw him as an all-star. So, I mean, unprecedented growth aside, like they still traded a 5th option. I don't know.
The one on the screen right now, I do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, me too.
I have no attachment to Fred and Pascal.
Yeah, me neither.
No, zero, absolutely none. I sleep like a baby when they're gone. I find out what they're traded for the next day. Swear to God. I don't even need to know what they got traded for. I go to sleep like a baby. Then I find out the next day after
That's funny.
The Pascal and filler for Turner, Dort, Nembhard. I don't even care if we don't get it first. You take the trade, you hang up the phone, you change the number again. You disconnect the cord.
We would get a first in that. We definitely have to get a first in that.
All you hear is, the number you have dialed is no longer in service. That's the kind of trade that is.
That's funny, man. Chat's having fun with this one. That's hilarious.
The Pascal and Fred. Oh my God, we get rid of Pascal and Fred for KD. We'll take Harris. I'll drive these guys to the airport. I'll drive them. I'll pay their tickets. I'll swipe my credit card.
That's funny.
I'm dead serious. All right.
That's funny.
Now, here's the part where I'm going to talk about this. Someone talked about we can get more for Pascal. Man, do you know? So you and I agree on Pascal. We have eyes. We watch these games. These people have scouts. You think you're going to fleece them? A guy, his numbers.
Teams fleece themselves all the time. The teams fleece themselves all the time. Okay, I guarantee you, there's some. I don't think that you. I think. Look, if let's put it this way. Let's say all 29 general managers, you and I, were all asked to assess Pascal Siakam's value as a number. I guarantee you and I probably have the lowest number.
Okay, that's fair enough. But here, the teams that I'm looking to trade him for are desperate teams, right? So I'm talking about teams who are kind of delusional or are desperate or have made bad decisions. We're talking about Blazers, Wizards, Mavericks,
Lakers,
Hawks, Bulls, right? Suns. Those are the teams I'm looking at. I'm not looking at teams that are thinking clearly. You got to go for the wounded animal, and then you strike.
Okay.
And you hand them Pascal, right? You shine the turd and you just hand it to them.
Is there any part of you that thinks the minute this guy becomes a second option that he's going to blossom into like the best second option in the league?
Second option for who? He's not good off the ball. He can't shoot. It has to be for a specific number one.
Yes, that's true. It has to be for a Tyrese Halliburton or a Nikola Jokic.
Some guy who can shoot. some guy who could spread the floor or make decisions on his behalf, like extremely high IQ or extremely good shooter. Like he could be a two for Curry. He could be a two for Curry.
You know who's thriving right now?
him and
Aaron
Giannis,
Gordon.
horrible.
You see how Aaron Gordon's doing in Denver?
Yes.
Doing brilliantly, right?
Yeah, he could.
He wasn't doing that in Orlando.
He could do better than that.
Pascal Siakam could be that plus.
Yes,
right?
I agree.
That's exactly the role that he needs to be in. He needs to be in a situation where he has a better decision maker than him. And ironically, if he could just wake up, he would realize he's actually in that situation right now with Scottie Barnes. But he's not going to do that because of pecking order, etc. So fine, go to another team and figure that out.
These are inflated stats that are dropping by the week. The percentages are dropping by the week. It used to be, how Matt Devlin, would say how many guys in the league are averaging 27, 8 and 7. Right now we're below 25. We're at 24, 8 and 6. The numbers keep dropping. The percentages keep dropping.
Come on, don't be disingenuous. It's 24.8.
Yeah, but do you know where we were a month ago?
Round up 25. Just give him 25, man.
We'll
Coach Mo, come on.
Yeah, but
just give him the 25. Give him the boost.
A part of me was sad because I wrote this in the chat the other day. A part of me was sad that Matt Devlin wasn't there for the last game, so he can tell us how big of a crime it was that Pascal didn't make it. I was I wanted that comedy from Matt, but he wasn't there. I know chat was looking forward to Matt Devlin telling us how upset we should be.
Did you catch?
We should be writing letters to Adam Silver.
Did you catch Paul Jones giving Juancho an awesome nickname?
Okay, I tuned out from Paul George. He's like
Paul Jones. Yeah. He called him El Cuchillo. It means the knife because he likes to cut. And I was just like, you know what? I think I'm not a huge Paul Jones fan. I'm not a huge anyone fan, to be honest. Eric Smith, Paul Jones, Leo Routens. I have to anyone out there. By the way, if anyone out there is like, damn, what do really good color commentators sound like? Go check out the Blazers commentary, and go check out the Pelicans commentary. Those two teams.
I've created monsters. Some guy said send Billy said send Siakam to Detroit. Dude, that's too much. I wouldn't even do that.
Detroit?
I wouldn't even do that. That's harsh, dude.
For what?
Yeah. Anyways,
you know what? Build a package. Send him to Detroit, yes, but I want Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey back.
So
deal. In a heartbeat.
Anyways, this was my point about the Siakam not being worth as much as he was. Like, he doesn't make I don't enjoy watching Pascal play, obviously. He's a ball stopper. He's worried about stats and accolades and getting a supermax he's not really worth, right? He can't really spread the floor. He's slow to make decisions. He's not a leader. He's not encouraging. He doesn't help the young guys, not necessarily. And you're right about he keeps to himself. He's a private person, which I can't hold up against him. But these are quickly trades I would do for Pascal, and maybe I'm undervaluing him, I guess, but I would do a Pascal for Grant, Hart, and a first. Is that good?
Grant, Hart, and a first. I don't see why Portland does that though. Grant is a better shooter, way better shooter, and it doesn't really help us tank because I guarantee you, Grant.
I know it doesn't.
It makes us better.
Yes, he is. I'd rather have him. I would do a Grant for Pascal 1-for-1 if we're trying to win. If we're trying to win, I do that. Like, let's say your life is on the line and the win totals matter. You're doing that trade.
But why though? Because Pascal is worth way more than Jeremy Grant around the league. He makes way more than him. And to be honest, even if you're making that deal, I feel like you need to get Shaedon Sharpe back. And I just don't see why Portland makes that deal because, I mean, unless they're completely stupid, Pascal is a better defender than Jeremy Grant, for sure. He's not great, but he's a better defender than Jeremy Grant. He's not a better shooter, but he's a better creator. But it's do you need a better creator when you already have Dame Lillard? Yeah, you could use a secondary creator. I don't know, man. I'm kind of all over the fence about that. I feel like I don't see why they get rid of two defenders in that deal. Josh Hart and Peyton and Grant are the reason why they're not the worst defense in the league. So I just don't see why they get rid of any of those guys if they're getting.
You know how the Jazz, and the Pacers were thought to have been tanking and were going to be in the Wemby sweepstakes and they weren't. It's because they play the right way and they have selfless guys. That's what we would be if you removed Fred and Pascal from our team. We'd be those teams. We'd be overachieving.
So
I
you're
truly
saying
believe
hold
that.
on to Fred and Pascal because they're the tank commanders?
I think so.
Okay.
I think they help. Okay, your Pacers trade. If you just simplified Pascal for Turner and a first.
I want more for Pascal, man. Like I get it. I'm just trying not to be emotional about this, right? Yes, I could say all I want about like how he's this. Let me tell you something that let me say something positive about Pascal.
Go
Okay,
ahead.
this is going to be completely positive. This is not a negative thing.
All right.
I
cross your
watched
fingers.
25 minutes of Victor Wembanyama play. 25 minutes of Victor Wembanyama. Now you're gonna hate this comment. Close your ears if you're sensitive. Do you know what I realized? Did you close your ears? You probably did. He is a way more athletic, way more defensively minded, probably definitely way more advanced for his age. Pascal Siakam. He plays so much like him. It's ridiculous how often he does all the same moves, all the same spots. He has a lot of the same weaknesses and a lot of the same strengths. In fact, if anything, Siakam's a better creator for others than Wembanyama right now. The real difference here is that he's 18 years old. He's 7'4". He's a crazy shot blocker. So really, the difference here between Siakam being like an amazing player and a terrible player is defensive upside, because I don't think, if you're a team next year that drafts Wembanyama and you start giving Wembanyama Pascal usage, you're going to suck too. You are. He's not that great a shooter. He's an okay shooter. His potential really is all on the hypotheticals, right? It's the package, it's the height, it's the whatever, right? You look at his handle, you're like, wow, never seen a guy who's that tall who can handle like that. Leanne, thank you so much for the super chat. Much appreciated as always. Do you sort of see it?
Yeah. Does he have the mentality of I need 25?
No, that's the difference. But I'm saying in terms of skill set, right? Like to anyone in the chat, like,
how is he off ball? How's he off ball? Because lately, Pascal without the ball doesn't give a crap about what's going on.
Well, see, that's the problem, right? Like every single thing that I've seen from Wembanyama, okay, like off ball, I feel like he's a little bit smarter, right? He can coast a little bit too, though. He does have sort of a star mentality on off ball already. So, chat, let me know if you see it. If you've seen Wembanyama highlights.
All right, how about this? Pascal for DeJounte Murray and Clint Capella.
Oh my God. Wow. Like you're speaking my language because I love DeJounte Murray, right?
Yeah. How about those two? Is that enough value with your own
Like you're going straight to the playoffs with that. You know that, right?
Yeah,
like you're going straight. You're not even going play-in. You're skipping play-in. You're going straight playoffs with that one because Clint Capella and DeJounte Murray shore up like every freaking weakness. Shooting is still a problem though.
That one, there's no picks for getting.
Yeah, you wouldn't get picks. I don't even think they have picks to give. I think they might have one pick from Sacramento that they can give.
Here's a simplified Chicago one you made, and I already had this earlier today before you went live. Pascal for Vooch, Williams, DeSomo, 2 firsts.
How's that different than what I did?
Was Pascal going there too?
Oh shit. Okay, so that okay.
No, this is all to get Pascal off the team. This is all to get rid of Pascal. And don't worry, Rob, guys, chat, everyone. We will play a tribute video when he comes back. I promise.
Oh man.
A 30-second tribute video.
You need at least a minute. You need a minute.
At least a minute. Okay, 45-second tribute video. Chat, is that enough? 45 seconds?
It's so crazy. Like there's this video that I created of him just saying, no, I think he said like, it is what it is. It is what it is. It is what it is. When he was responding to why he didn't make the All-Star team. Right. And I did something horrible and I showed my girlfriend. She's like, you don't want to do this. Like you do not want to post this. And it was basically, just a voiceover of him saying it to a washing machine going around and around and around and soapy bubbles. And there was so much like subtext to that, the bubble, the washing machine, spin cycle, that whole thing. And I was just like, it's so unnecessarily cruel. And why is this? I fucking hate this. You know what it is? I don't dislike Pascal. I don't. I dislike every fucking person who's tried to shove this guy down my throat for the last, year as a top option or a top 10 player or whatever. My beef is not with Pascal. I admire Pascal. Pascal is a hard worker. Pascal is, to the best of my understanding, an American dream. Like, this is an American dream. To come from Douala, Cameroon, be drafted 27th overall, go to New Mexico State, be drafted 27th overall, go from the G League to what a fucking career arc. He's made, like, there are very few prospects that you could say they did 100% of everything they could to maximize whatever they became. He's one of them. He is one of those guys where you can say that's 100% of what he could have become, and he did it. There's a few other guys, and ironically, the Raptors have a lot of them. Fred VanVleet is 100% of what he could become. Like, to go from undrafted to this.
Yeah, you can't rinse any out of water left. Those guys, they got the most they could get out of it.
Absolutely.
I think so.
So like,
it's at the expense of Scottie, and that's where I draw the line.
I think it's just it's such a before I started this chat out, right? I laid out a premise. I laid out a set of things that I believe to be true, things that might be true.
Yeah, I saw all that.
Yeah, it was this, right? The 5 premises. The way to logic.
One reason why I want Pascal gone. He does not fit next to Scottie. And here's another main reason why I want Fred and Pascal gone. You got to remove them from Nick Nurse and their comfort level and the way they see themselves on this team. They almost need a mindset change. They need this pecking order thing needs to be dismantled. And the easiest way to do it is to remove them. It's like when Masai got rid of Lou Williams and Grievous Vasquez, and they were on the court together. We were the worst defense in the league by far because they couldn't defend for nothing. But goddamn it, Dwayne Casey was adamant on playing them. So you almost have to remove them so the coach can't destroy the team with those 2 players. You almost got to remove them. Like the kid, he can't play with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean, like, look, it's the concept here is that you have any argument that you make, there's a set of variables that you take as factual, right? And there's like conclusions that you can base on that. To speak just to the term of sentential logic, right? If this pen is not dry, then I have no reason to expect to put it to paper and not be able to write. There's an if-then statement, right? So if Pascal Siakam is a top 5 player or a top 10 player, if he has that level of upside, if that were in fact true, then there's no reason right now to not build around him.
Yeah.
There's absolutely none. What I take issue with is when the premise introduced is false and is treated as if it's true. That bothers me.
If he was
right?
top 5, we'd be in the playoffs right now.
Definitely,
because we'd be in the situation we're in.
Right, because you know, did you catch the top 20 players that we did? Vince, myself, and Tamberlin. We were going through the top 20 players in the NBA.
No.
So that was in the last chat, and I added timestamps so you can actually go through it. It's a little bit arduous to go through us bantering back and forth, but long story short, it was Jokic number 1, number 2 I believe was KD, number 3 was. Hang on. Who the hell was number 3? Number 3. Okay, so basically the top 5 was Jokic, KD. No, it wasn't Siakam. It was Jokic, KD, Luka, Tatum. We'd put Tatum, I think, 4, Luka 5, and right now I'm just not remembering who the hell we put at number 3. Does anyone remember who we put at number 3? God damn it. Giannis. Giannis was number 2. KD was number 3.
Embiid.
And Embiid was like 6th or 7th. So my point is, you take any one of those guys and you give them Pascal usage on this team.
We're top 4 seed.
Yeah, you're top 2.
Those players are guarded the way Pascal is defended on a nightly basis. Those guys average 40.
Yeah, exactly. And they collapse defenses so much better, and they defend better. Like for the most part, every single player I named, with the exception of Luka, is also a better defender.
No one's losing sleep guarding Pascal Siakam. I guarantee you that.
Right. So that's kind of the point, right? It's like you keep, like, I get that part of sports entertainment is you got to market to your stars. You've got to tell, if you're a Memphis Grizzlies commentator, you got to convince your fan base that Ja is the best point guard in the NBA. Mm-hmm. You can't be like, contextualizing it and being like, yeah, well, Tyrese is a better playmaker and Dame's a better scorer, but like I get it. There's a healthy bit of, let's call it 15% tax on propaganda that I'm willing to deal with.
Ours
right?
is like 80. We're at like 80%. We're just
yeah. And I think there's like, I don't know 80%, but like there's like a 2-to-1 ratio on like how Raptor fans and Raptor media treat Fred, Pascal. And even now it's starting to get annoying because it's getting over to OG, and OG is really one of my favorite players. But like the way that they talk about this guy, you would think he is the best defender in the NBA, and he's not.
Yeah.
He's not even close. He's not even close to the top 5 defender. I could buy myself into top 5-ish conversation. But to say he's the best defender in the NBA is so disingenuous, and so like, just as someone who studies the tape and watches other teams, like, shut up about this. Like, he's not, right? He's good. He's really good. Can we just talk about him that way, right?
Rob,
like, I don't have.
Matt was right last year. The propaganda machine, Matt. He said Scottie Roy. He said Pascal All NBA, and he said Freddie All Star. He willed those 3 things to existence. He did it. He spoke it into existence. You got to give him credit, dude. I'm joking, like, but
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I had some. I want to take at least 1% credit for the Scottie Rookie of the Year stuff. I made a lot of videos about it, and I emailed a lot of people who had votes about it too, and I gave them all the stats and all the shit. But I do want to say that I think, to the specific All-Star snub stuff, like I've been thinking a lot about that, and I did a lot of research into it, and I was just like, man, like I really do think Siakam got snubbed if you consider DeMar an All-Star. Siakam's had a better season than him. Apart from the efficiency stats, like he's been better than DeMar across the board. And for most of the season, he's been way better. Now, after January, he's been just marginally better, but he's been way better than him for the most part. And that vote did not happen, from what I understand. So to anyone in the chat who wants to understand how All-Star voting reserves, do you know, Mo, how reserves are?
It's all coaches. I just don't know when they do it exactly.
Right. So from what I understand, it happened a few weeks ago that they did the reserves vote, and here's how it actually happens. So you're given 3 front court players, 2 back court players, and 2 wild cards.
Mm-hmm.
So from what I understand, it's not obvious who those 2 wild cards were, right? But the other caveat here from the scout that I spoke to, who used to be an assistant coach, he said one of the things that they heavily prioritize with the final 2 wild cards is how well do they complement the current roster. So you could look at it that way and just say, was DeMar a wild card? Right? I've done some digging into this,
and he's more liked, and he's more plugged in.
He's more plugged in. He's more liked. He's very beloved. DeMar DeRozan is beloved.
He is.
I gotta say, I think Jalen Brunson, the tampering stuff, I think that cost him the All-Star vote. I'm probably the first person who's going to say that, but that's maybe a hot take. But I think a lot of teams around the league kind of got pissed off about that, and I think they're punishing him for it by giving Julius Randle the All-Star vote.
And here's another thing.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's going to get injured. Like it always happens. There's a replacement usually for each team.
That's a really good point, and that's the second thing I was going to bring up. So is Siakam?
It's going to be James Harden.
It is going to be James Harden.
Yeah,
and I was looking at exactly. I was looking at, and so that's the other part of this is based on who is injured. The replacement is almost always a player who plays the same position. So if that injury is Kevin Durant, then obviously Joel Embiid is going into the starting lineup, obviously. And the replacement for KD would then be a forward or a front court player. You could make a case that front court player is going to be Pascal Siakam.
Mm-hmm.
However, I'm going to argue that they would then take one of their wild cards, which is DeMar DeRozan, treat him as a front court player, and then add James Harden as a back court player. Because I was looking into like which players really got robbed. I'll tell you the 2 players that really got robbed: Anthony Davis and James Harden. If you're going to give somebody on a crappy team an All-Star vote, it should be Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
Problem is, he's come on late.
Yeah.
He's come on late.
If Zion's starting, it doesn't matter how many minutes you play, how many games you play.
Right. Someone says Steph is injured. Well, Steph is from the Western Conference, and so it won't influence. It will not influence Pascal Siakam. So the replacement is always from the same conference. Unfortunately, or fortunately, it's almost always from the same conference. The final caveat of this voting thing is really like, who do I think? Like, as I said, like, I think when did the vote happen? Because if the vote happened the day before it was announced, then Anthony Davis got snubbed. However, interestingly enough, if the vote happened mid-January, as is suspected, then Pascal Siakam's disastrous January was only half factored in, not fully factored in. Therefore, he is actually in worse standing today after the last 8-9 games that have been played than he was when the vote initially happened. So he has regressed. Like, every stat across the board has regressed from when they didn't vote him in. I think that coaches around the league, whether it was head coaches or assistant coaches, whoever, every team had one vote. So whoever made the vote is a person who is deeply, and I do mean deeply, familiar with Pascal Siakam.
Yeah.
They scout them. They watch him hundreds of hours.
No one's scared.
Every single person who,
not a soul is scared of that guy.
They know, right? Like, I mean, think about it. Like, if he was so well rated,
Harris is getting a good night's sleep during that playoff series. Good night's sleep. He was partying. He was laughing. He was celebrating. He's like, "Yeah, I got Pascal. I'm guarding Pascal 1-on-1. No help."
Yeah.
Do KD, and watch how he sleeps. Restless nights.
Yeah. So I think there's just a big gap between, and I mean, like, even the Raptors media people are starting to admit that OG has more value than Pascal Siakam.
Yeah. Duh.
How can you, on one hand, say that one guy is like aspiring to be a top 5 player and an MVP candidate? Find me an MVP candidate who has less value than a 3-and-D plug guy who's a negative box plus minus. I just want to know. This is like saying that Devin Booker has less value than fucking Mikal Bridges. This is like saying that Kevin Durant has less value than Nick Claxton.
Rob, here's another point. No one's thinking about.
What?
Do you remember when Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan were here, who were universally beloved, and every time they come into this city, and I don't go to the games because it's just a hassle, but I get up and I clap on my couch. I get up and I clap. That's how much we love those guys. We used to vote them in as starters in the All-Star games. Why are we?
Did get them in a couple of times.
Okay, if
was Kyle Lowry ever voted in as a starter?
I think he was. DeMar was a couple times.
DeMar was. But I mean, DeMar is big. DeMar is bigger than Toronto.
Yeah, but why are we doing that for Pascal if he's so beloved, if he's our MVP? Why aren't Canada as a nation voting Pascal in as a starter? Why aren't we doing it?
Because the team's losing.
He's not as beloved as they're making him out to be. And we actually voted him in as a starter the year after the championship because he had that championship glow to him. And he had that fresh newness to him. You know what I mean? He was a new toy. Yeah. He was Kawhi's replacement. He was the second best player on the championship team. Since then, one All-Star appearance, and that was it. 5 years since Kawhi.
I mean, you could argue, some people argue he was snubbed last year. I think it's just his timing, like he's unfortunately injured to start last year. He comes back, he's not good. They swear he was snubbed last year. There's just no way in hell where we were in the standings last year at the All-Star game that you were going to get 2 All-Stars in. So
he missed too much time,
yeah.
He missed too many weeks to start the year, and that the All-Star game is basically November and December weighed heavily.
And then January partially.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. It's just it's kind of tragic for him because, his career arc, like the projection, because he's 28. He's going to be 29 this season.
He'll be 29. Also, he will be 30 when he's expecting that. The summer of 2024, he'll be 30, expecting a max contract.
They better fucking plan that out because you know what? I'll tell you right now, if they sign him to a supermax, if he ends up staying on this team and their plan, and I hear that their plan is to sign him to the supermax, like this team better have like copious amount of draft picks. Number one, to supplement all of the talent that you're going to need on a roster that's buoyed by a max contract to that guy where he's not going to give you max contract value. Number two, you better have future value in terms of picks because you're going to need to attach picks to get rid of that contract in 3 years. So
What about this?
Yeah.
What about this, Rob? What about this? I'm not a big fan of Ayton, but Pascal, Boucher for Ayton, Johnson, Shamet, and a first.
Say that again. Pascal, Boucher, and who?
For Ayton, Cam Johnson, Shamet, and a first.
Easy.
You do
Yes.
that.
Easy. I'm not even. I don't even like DeAndre Ayton. I just think it would be cool to pair the Jamaican brothers.
You think the Suns do it? They keep
I
their
know.
core
I know.
three.
I know
keep
they
their
like
core
Cam
three.
Johnson. I
They
know. I
keep
know
their-
they like their Cam. I know they like Cam Johnson a lot. I know they're not super thrilled about DeAndre Ayton, and he hasn't done anything this year to change that opinion. I'm not super thrilled about DeAndre Ayton because he makes a lot of money for a guy
Yeah.
who just does not move the needle much
Yeah, he
for you in
doesn't
terms
at
of
all.
wins
To
and
me,
losses.
I don't. But I don't think Pascal moves the needle either. So
He's better than DeAndre Ayton.
yeah, but you're also getting Williams. You're getting Johnson, Shamet, and first. So it's like I don't
I
know.
don't know if the Suns do that, man. I don't know if either team does that. But I think the Raptors should be open to it. I think again, like, you're selling, you got to sell your fan base on this. I feel like, look, as much as you and I would probably be really happy to find out tomorrow that Pascal Siakam's been moved. I think there's
You can.
I'm just trying to imagine what Masai Ujiri is going to say about it, because the second the trade happens, Masai, Bobby are going to do their interviews, right? It's
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
have to happen. If it doesn't happen, it always happens. Every single year we see a trade deadline interview before the trade deadline, after the trade deadline. If a move has been made, then they do introductory press conferences, whatever, right?
I just.
I just need to, I guess what I'm trying to say is I am trying to imagine what they would say if they deal Pascal Siakam. After everything that this media machine, after everything this team has openly said about him. Now, if in fact, but again, it's like reading between the tea leaves. They have made him available 3 different times.
Mhm.
And if you believe the reports now, they're making him available for a 4th time.
He's so touchable. I just think no one wants him. Or what they're asking for, because what they're asking for is like, dude, you can keep him. Pascal's the ultimate fine. Keep him. He's the ultimate fine. You keep him.
Yeah, DC saying Ayton is from the Bahamas. That's only partially true. He is partially Jamaican. I promise you that's true. I verified that myself.
But one thing I'm thinking about that you said, Rob, was every day you keep these guys, they're less valuable because they're closer to their contract running out and getting paid more. They all, you said it, OG, Fred, Pascal, they all outplayed the contracts that they currently are on.
Mm-hmm.
The next ones, for sure, at least I'm almost 100% positive, Fred and Pascal will not outperform their next contracts.
Yeah, I agree. It's again, like there's a version of this team that with different pecking order could have worked really well.
Oh my God. No pecking order. No pecking order.
Well, I mean,
Do you think
that's
there's a pecking order in? Do you really think there's a pecking order in Utah and in Indiana?
Are you trying to aspire to be Utah and Indiana though?
No. I'm saying, do you think there is a pecking order, like a true one? We have a hard pecking order. I think our pecking order is more set in stone than Milwaukee's.
It is. It
Yeah,
is.
and that's
Because
a
at
problem.
least, yeah. I mean, look, I think the narrative around this team has been that it's egalitarian offense. Any night can be anyone's night. I think that maybe I've always said this: leadership. A team without pecking order and without leadership will fail.
Bingo.
Okay. If you have to have a team with no pecking order, kind of like Indiana or Utah, you better have solid leadership, i.e., step in, Tyrese Halliburton, Mike Conley, those types of guys.
Give me the Mike
Even
Conley
a Kyle Lowry. I think when you have selfless leaders, the pecking order thing can work itself out, right? You can leave it egalitarian. The ball will find the right guy. If you have the right offensive system, that can work. I think that where you get into trouble is when you have naturally selfish guys who are now motivated by extra contract value due to stats and the obsession that we have with stats as a collective. And I think it's like it just leans. It's almost entrapment. Like this season was set up to fail.
It was.
And I would not be surprised if they knew that. There was a strong possibility this would happen. There's no way you entertain O.G Anunoby for the 7th overall pick if you're expecting to contend this year, right? They had their one foot out the door the whole way through. There's no way you start Christian Koloko There's no fucking way you start Christian Koloko and play Malachi Flynn and Delano Banton if you're not expecting to lose. There's no fucking way that you do not shore up your backup center position and you just leave these guys. Like I get it. The Thad and Otto moves,
if Porter and Achua never got hurt, we're in the playoffs. I believe that.
I do too. I do too.
Here's another question. We're facing the Grizzlies tonight. Did Dylan Brooks' suspension already happen, or is it on us?
Good question. I think
I want
it's
him to
tonight.
guard Pascal so bad.
He is out tonight.
Damn it!
Yeah, so Dylan Brooks is out, Steven Adams is out, and I think there's a chance possibly that John Morant's out tonight too.
Oh God. Okay, Jaren Jackson on Pascal. I'll enjoy that.
Yeah.
You get the wins where you can get them. You know.
Yeah. I'm actually curious now, so I want to check right now before we end this chat. Underdog NBA. I'm just gonna see like what is the Grizzlies injury report tonight because they're playing in 4 hours. That's crazy. Yeah, I was supposed to do this. I was supposed to do this show for like an hour and a half. I was like, yeah, that'll make sense. I mean, you gotta know with me, man. Like if I say I'm doing something for an hour and a half, it's gonna be 3 hours, unfortunately.
Someone in the chat said Pascal's tribute video is going to be 45 seconds of him spinning.
Oh my God. Let's see here. Lineup. Mo Bamba is suspended 4 games. Oh my God. Austin Rivers suspended 3 games. Jalen Suggs suspended 1 game.
By the way, I watched the Lakers Pelicans game yesterday. Brandon Ingram by himself made a comeback in the fourth, hitting tough shot after tough shot after tough shot. He made Patrick Beverley look like a pylon. Dude, he's better than Pascal, dog. That guy is ice cold. He just gets to his spot, he rises, and he makes difficult
devil's advocate. If somebody said, I saw Pascal Siakam live in Madison Square Garden, he put 52 points up on this team, he's better than Brandon Ingram, would you believe that argument?
Okay. The way they were guarding Pascal, the way they were guarding Brandon Ingram, they tried to deny him. He got the ball. They're being physical with him. All eyes are on him. They know he's getting the ball. He gets to his spot and he rises up. And there is absolutely nothing you can do about it. When he misses, he missed. There's nothing you did. It's like KD.
Yeah.
There's guys where it's like, well, you just hope he misses. Pascal's not one of those, I hope he misses. You make him miss. You know Dylan Brooks,
my God. Okay, so Dylan Brooks is out. Steven Adams is out. John Morant is questionable. Sorry, day-to-day. Questionable for Sunday's game due to right wrist soreness. And guess what? Jaren Jackson Jr. is also day-to-day. Listed as questionable for Sunday's game against the Raptors due to tight soreness.
All right, well, book the 20-plus shots for Pascal and Fred.
Man, I was really looking forward to a loss tonight. And if they win this game, because the Grizzlies pretty much sit their entire starting lineup, but the Grizzlies are a deep team. They're a really deep team. So, there was actually a trade that I didn't present, which was going to be centered around David Roddy. It was a player that the Raptors really liked around the draft time that I got wind of. David Roddy, and then I think Conchar. Those 2 players would be really interesting for the Raptors. But it's just like, I don't want them to pick up guys that are going to help them win right now. Because I really do think that pick that we have is a good one.
This season is so weird because I swear in past years, this road trip, the 7-game road trip, we go 5-2 easily. This is a 5-2 road trip. In past years. I mean, the Grizzlies are banged up. The Jazz aren't good. The Blazers aren't good.
Do you know how much the Thunder beat the Rockets by yesterday? That Rocket team that we barely eked out a win against?
How much?
They scored 152 points on them. I think they beat them by 30 points.
Jeez.
That's the Thunder. That's the Thunder without Chet Holmgren.
The Raptors against the Thunder, that one game in Oklahoma City that we got blown out, and it was just eye-opening, the difference in cohesion and playmaking. We just got backdoor cut like 8 times in a row. We kept giving up layups. That was the first time I thought to myself, something's wrong. That was the first time I was like, something is really, really wrong with this team.
Yeah, I've been feeling it. I've been feeling it all year. All right, Mo. Thanks a lot for calling in. I really appreciate it. It's like you sort of co-hosted the last hour of this with me.
Okay,
Fun,
so we have
funny
1,
insights.
2, 3, 4 more days. 4 more days.
Is it just 4 more days?
Yep.
Thursday, right?
Thursday,
2:30 p.m. What's the
2:30
deadline?
p.m.
It's
I think
2:30
it's 3
p.m.
p.m. Eastern. I think it's 3 p.m. Eastern.
Hmm.
You think they have most of the framework done before then? It's just a yes or no at that point.
It's haggling. Like it's it's like it comes down to like a couple of things where like, okay, I have this deal, but I want to just see what this other deal might fall through. Okay,
Yeah.
let me know. And then they go, and it's man, it's so complicated because people are lying to each other like nonstop, and you just take all this time to sort of weed out who's lying to who and what you can
Yeah.
finagle and how desperate. It's a game of chicken. It is such a game of chicken. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, you
And the
want
Knicks lost that game of
you want
chicken.
two
The
first
Knicks
round
lost
picks.
the game of chicken.
Pardon?
The Knicks lost the game of chicken for Mitchell. They lost.
They did.
Yeah.
They did. They definitely did. And it wasn't because of Quentin Grimes. Shit. I just wanted to include Quentin Grimes in that. I was going to include Quentin Grimes in one of those New York trades just to piss off that fan.
Do
But
you value Josh Green in the Mavericks?
it's all right.
All right. So there's no way you think the Mavs can get Pascal. There's no way.
I don't see how, man.
Me
Like, they
neither.
don't
Me
have a
neither.
ton of assets. Like, I mean, nothing that they would give up. Like, that. And that's the problem, right? Like, you look at the Dallas Mavericks.
The guys who are desperate for him, what can they give us to keep themselves good, to pair Pascal with? You know what I mean? It's weird.
Yeah, they don't have like great future assets. They don't have anyone on that team that I really, really like. I like Spencer Dinwiddie. I do. I like Dorian Finney-Smith. These
I
are
like
all
Dorian
guys.
Finney-Smith.
These are all guys. Like, these are all guys that like fourth, fifth option kind of
But
guys. These are
that's a
Massey
trade. That's the Rudy Gay trade. We get better. We just get better. That's the Rudy Gay trade. Like
100%.
in terms of they get the best
100%.
player, but we start winning.
Man, Dorian Finney-Smith, like on this team, just
Mhm.
like sniping for us. Spencer Dinwiddie, like it would be interesting because you just have a whole bunch of guys who would sort of play the right way,
But
replacing a guy who doesn't play the right
the
way.
trade we talked about the other day, I've watched Avdia yesterday after the Kyrie news. I watched the Nets team play without Kyrie. I watched Avdia hit back-to-back threes, nothing but net. And he's actually a good defender. He's bigger than he looks. Like his face, if you just see his face and then you see how tall he is, it's like, geez, this dude's huge. I do that
Yeah.
trade. I do Pascal for Porzingis and Avdia and 2 firsts. Wizards jump on that. They're
Yeah,
all
I
in on
would
the
too.
Bradley Beal team. They're all in. Bradley
I
Beal,
w-
Kuzma, Pascal. There you go.
I
Playing
I
championship
I
banner.
think Porzingis is playing really well. I really do. You know,
Okay,
I
one first and Avdia. One first and Avdia.
won first. All right. Okay. I'm gonna get my Sunday off to a better start. I'm really glad that we got to do this chat because everyone, you know, all the international people, they always complain that we don't do these chats at the right time for them. So I was really hoping that we could do one for those guys. Yeah, we're gonna do a shorter show because there's no way I can do like
Oh no,
my
I can
voice
already
will be
see.
dead.
Yeah,
We'll do
yeah.
a shorter show after the Memphis loss, hopefully, fingers crossed, loss because I don't see the point of winning right now. And we will see. I don't know what to expect from this game. I
Oh,
think a lot of it is hinging on if Ja and Jaren Jackson play. If Ja and Jaren Jackson play, I expect a win for the Grizzlies, but they're slumping right now. Yeah, DC saying the next 6 days will be interesting. It's not 6 days, buddy. It's Thursday. Thursday deadline. So it's 4
yeah.
days, 4 or 5 days. Yeah. All right, Mo. Have a good one. Hopefully see you at
Also,
the. Yeah. What's up?
you know how the Cavs aren't playing that well? Do you think we can do like an OG and Pascal for
Mobley.
Evan Mobley and filler? You think we can do 2 of them for Mobley? 2 of them for Mobley and like filler?
Love.
You love whatever. We'll take whatever, but they get Pascal and OG. You think that's possible? It's essentially Pascal OG for Mobley, and then we'll take whatever the hell they to match salaries.
Man, you trade Pascal and OG for one guy, mainly one guy, no picks. You better be so sure about that guy.
What do you think?
I'm very sure about him.
Me too. I
like
do.
very sure about him. Um, and I'm very sure about the fit with Scottie. Um, and I'm very sure that that team would lose a lot.
Which team?
This team, like with Evan Mobley and Scottie Barnes being like basically your 1-2 options, like with Fred VanVleet trying to. Actually, no, I'm not sure they would lose a lot. Fuck, because Evan
Yeah.
Mobley does clean up a lot of the defensive issues. But yeah, I mean, initially when I proposed that deal, I think I'm pretty much I want to say I'm the first person. I never saw it anywhere else where I proposed that deal for Pascal for Mobley.
Dude,
I
I just did
didn't
it.
see adding.
I just did it. Pascal Siakam, O.G Anunoby for Kevin Love, Karis LeVert, and Evan Mobley.
Oh, you're adding Karis LeVert back, eh? Well, now you're definitely gonna win. Um,
He's on an expiring 18 million. So yeah, there's it. You think they
I
do
mean,
that?
Kevin Love helps you win right now. Evan Mobley helps you win right now. Karis LeVert helps you win right now. I feel like I get where you're going with that one, and it's cool. I think it's a lot to give up for Mobley, though. I do. You're giving up a franchise player and a guy. Like, I mean, if we buy the hype, that Siakam's worth at least 2 first rounders and that OG's worth at least 3, you're dealing both of them for one guy. So which means you're basically dealing them for the. You're saying Evan Mobley's worth 5 first rounders.
How many first rounders do you think Scottie's worth?
Good point. 4 or 5,
Mhm.
easy, maybe more. I don't know. It's weird, right? Like it kind of depends on your projections. Like I think of Scottie like a future top 10 player. I hope Mobley hits that same stride. I don't know if he will.
The
I
logic,
haven't seen growth in his offensive game as much. Obviously, that huge performance he had
yeah,
is like
he's
really
efficient
encouraging.
around the rim. He has good touch around the rim. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, like if anything, like playing, I think Raptor fans should know, right, with Scottie's offensive numbers, that the raw output of scoring is not going to be indicative of the guy's talent level when he's
yeah,
playing
yeah.
with dominant guards.
hmm
Like Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, that's a lot of touches,
And
right?
I think they went all in on the Mitchell trade, and this is just doubling down on the all in because you know what I mean. They traded all their picks, and it's like you went all in, but you're
Yeah.
trying not to go like Mobley's the security blanket,
What
but
about
he's
the
not.
theory that you do like, okay, so here's the thing. I think you're creating a juggernaut in the East with that trade.
Yes, yes.
Like you are creating an unstoppable monster for the next 3 years. Uh, I don't know how that sits with me. If I wanted to trade OG and
That's the
Pascal
best
to a
starting lineup in
team,
the league, hands down. That starting lineup,
that's
hands
basically
down.
5 All Stars or 5
Yes,
near All Stars.
yeah.
That's crazy to me. Like
They're not hanging up. They got to listen to that, and they got to think. They got to talk to their people. You propose that trade to them?
I would rather give up Pascal and a pick than give up Pascal and OG for that. And
They're not.
and I
They're
like
not accepting Pascal on the pick for Mobley and Love. They're not doing that.
no, that's fair. All right, man.
All right.
We got one more caller here too. So, he disappeared. Okay. Yeah. I think I'm just gonna end this chat, man. This is 3 hours and 30 minutes. This is a crazy long chat, but thank you so much for calling in. Thank you everyone in the chat. Thank you everyone who gave a super chat. I apologize immensely if I missed a super chat. I promise I will go back and I will scrub through. And if I missed one, actually, if you're still here and I missed your super chat, just let me know right now, and that way I won't have to figure it out. But I'm just going to go back through and look at all this and try to index it and hopefully say thank you to those people. But yeah, the super chats are really helpful, and they've been great for the last, like, it's been crazy. Like you've been seeing them fly off the last 8-9 days. So thank you to everyone who's doing that. And someone said even Kessler is better than Rudy now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
sad.
It's sad. But yeah, like, I mean, it's just like, you got to find the desperate team. And I like the way you're
Yes,
thinking,
yes.
right? Like, you
You
got
got
to
to
find the
find it
desperate team. And like, the Lakers are a
that
desperate
hitch
team
their
right now.
wagon to like a Damian Lillard or Bradley Beal. You got to pick out the idiots and just go. I swear.
Yeah, you gotta find a team that's sniffing success for the first time. Their fan base is excited about success, and they're willing to make a panic move.
Mhm.
And I think that, or they've built around an aging star that they need to give one last hurrah to, and they're willing to sacrifice a first round pick at the altar for it. And I think Miami, Lakers, Portland, they all fit that
I think
bill
after
of
this
teams.
summer with the Spurs trade, the DeJounte Murray trade, the Rudy Gobert trade, how the Lakers trade is looking right now, those picks. I think people are weary to trade first-round picks, and I don't think you're going to mortgage your future for a Pascal Siakam.
I have a feeling people feel oddly more comfortable giving up other teams' first-round picks than their own.
Fair enough.
I don't know why that is, but I've noticed it. That somehow there's a less attachment to. It's a psychological thing. It's like, are you more comfortable giving your own $10 or somebody else's $10 that you are temporarily or permanently in possession of? I don't know. It's something about like, oh, it's extra. Like when you're a team with like 6 first-round picks, there's always that fear that your team ends up being really bad, right? Like it takes a pretty rational and objective. It is because your fan base can't even get excited about you being bad, right?
It's like they have situation. It's like the Nets situation. They can't tank. They absolutely can't.
It's like the Lakers situation specifically. Like the Lakers are pretty much like outside the playoff spot right now, and if they lose, they don't even have a top pick to look forward to. The fan base is completely fucked.
You know what's funny about that situation? When the Lakers and Pelicans played, if the Lakers won, they would have had identical records. They would have been 26-28 each.
That's crazy.
And they would have been dead even, and you can't pick swap. You know what I mean? It's weird. Like they're close in the pick swap area. So
no, for sure. Like I just think that it's a really bad look for a franchise. So I look at these teams that have accumulated 5, 6, 7 draft picks, Utah, New York, etc.
If you have to guess, where does Kyrie go? If you have to guess, where does Kyrie go? Where he stay?
Lakers, Dallas, Miami. I see those 3. I really like. I don't see. Yeah, someone said Toronto. I was just like, you're crazy. It's not gonna happen.
Miami would give easily. They'd give up what's his name?
Lowry.
No, Hero. Hero's more coveted. Lowry is just.
You think they'd give up Hero for Kyle for 1 year of Kyrie, half a year of Kyrie? I don't think so.
You think Kyrie would leave Miami right away? Maybe. Who knows? You can't trust that guy. I agree, but.
I don't even know about like whether like because he would want to. The whole thing is there's no leaving, so Kyrie's not playing out the rest of his contract unless you give him an extension. So the trade comes with an extension banked into it.
Wink.
That's
wink. Wink.
Yeah, and I talked to someone in the New York area like a couple of days ago. I was trying to confirm that Quentin Grimes thing, and I was trying to figure out like what's this Kyrie situation going to be like, right? And the whole hang up right now is that they want all these provisions in his contract.
Yeah.
Right? They want games played. They want to take they want to put like whatchamacallit? Like bonuses and perks into the contract for the number of games he plays. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he doesn't want to do that. He thinks he's a max player. He's sort of proven that he's a max player, and they still don't want to do that. And at this point, he doesn't even want to sign. Like, so I think the biggest worry right now is that he'll just sit. Like, if they don't trade him, he's going to sit because he's not going to risk injury without a contract. It's kind of like, he sees himself like the same way a coach who has a 1-year contract left sees himself. You have to extend me or I'm not playing.
But the problem with Kyrie is if KD, who's his supposedly best friend in the NBA, if he isn't behaving properly for him, who he teamed up with, who he made a promise with, what makes you think he's going to act right in your situation in any way?
I think, it's difficult to judge people in toxic situations. I've always looked at people like that. Like the Joe Tsai, Bobby Marks, this whole Nets situation feels very toxic to me. I don't think that, but he's had not a great exit in Boston as well.
And Cleveland.
And Cleveland. So there's been a lot there to say that, hey, this is a guy who's kind of burned out in 3 places. And
a military approach is not going to work with him.
No, it's not. Yeah. Hell of a talent. I wouldn't deal with it personally. I think he's a great player, a really great player. And honestly, he's a true superstar.
Lakers only. That basically means Lakers only. And I just get those 2 unprotected firsts from LA. I just take it. And then you got to trade KD. Because KD's not.
The irony of this is like they'd have to deal Russ.
Yeah, they would.
So Russ, KD reunion.
Ben Simmons too. Ben Simmons.
Oh my goodness.
Russ, Ben Simmons.
Oh my God.
Claxton starting lineup.
KD demands a trade to Toronto the next day. Anyway, man.
You can't sell Ben Simmons. He's at an all-time low.
Yeah. K Money says, "What's great offensive potential? The man misses wide open mid range shots. He comp coming in with AD, who's known for that, but he's likely playing. Are you talking about Wemby?
I think he is. Yeah.
I think it's just with Wembanyama, as much as I said he's kind of like Siakam right now, I think the upside there is that being like Siakam at 18 means you can be so, so, so great at 25.
But,
Siakam's not a bad player.
yeah, but
Just
Wemby he's charismatic. I seen him in videos. He's lively. Like Pascal, Pascal's his production on the court, and that's it. He's not marketable at all.
there's a part of that that's true. Yeah. It's a big elephant in the room, but it's true.
Like you could see guys say, "I'm playing for let's galvanize around Wembanyama. Oh, he's our leader or whatever." I can see that happening when no one's coming here to play with Pascal, like you said. Barnes can be a recruiter. Ain't no one's saying, "Oh, I'm playing with Pascal," or "I'm working out with Pascal," or "Pascal's my friend," or nobody. He's just like there's multiple layers to this.
So he was talking about he wasn't talking about Wembanyama. He's talking about Evan Mobley. That's interesting. Huh.
Yeah, Mobley he's not plugged in. He's not a plugged in guy. That guy does his job and he goes home. He's like Tim Duncan.
He's believe it or not, really plugged into the LA area. He came up under a lot of tutelage from the older guys in LA, including DeMar and those guys. So like they were kind of looking up after him. So as a young kid, he was like handling the ball, playing with like professional basketball players and shit like that. So he's been groomed.
And he
by
has juice. He has juice. His brother's
yeah,
on the team.
but I don't know if people would go to play with him. More like he would go and play. Like he feels more like a follower than a leader personally. But I might just be ascribing way too much into being a quiet person. I don't know. Anyway, good luck to the Tank tonight. Let us pray on that one.
They blew out the Warriors that one game by like 50, and what's his name? Morant didn't play in the playoffs last year. You remember that game? Absolutely torpedoed them. So they're capable.
That is worth noting that this is a team that has done very well without Ja Morant historically.
Yes, big time.
So, but I think that Ja Morant could kill us. So I would like him to play. Because look, the Fred VanVleet defense shit is true. Like he has really, really fallen off a cliff defensively. And even though he's much better offensively over the last 2-3 weeks, that's one part of the game that has not come back for him, which is his defense. His point of attack defense has been shit. The Raptors are giving up crazy, crazy, crazy baskets at the rim. And you know what? If Steven Adams is not playing, and Jaren Jackson's not playing, and Ja Morant's not playing, and Dylan Brooks not playing, we're going to win.
Oh, I wouldn't guarantee that. If Pascal and Fred think this is the Houston Rockets game and this is my stat stuffing game, we could lose. If this is, let me get my let me get some home cooking going, this could be a loss. And they do that.
They have shooters. They have shooters. They have hungry guys on the bench that are looking for minutes. Brandon Clark could absolutely destroy us. I can see that happening.
Bane's dropping 35.
Bane, he's been really good, man. Like Desmond Bane has been so fucking good. People who don't watch Grizzlies games just don't understand how good this guy is. But like as a shooter, as a creator now too. Oh my God. He's so good. I did not see this coming from him. I thought he'd be good. I didn't think he'd be this good at all. So I am just, I don't know. Honestly, I just love Ja Morant. I want to see him play. That's just it. I love Ja Morant. I love Jaren Jackson Jr. I want to see them play. I hope they play. But we're at a point now where routinely, almost always, the other team's best players are missing against us. They're using us to rest, and we're still losing. That's the sucky part.
By the way, like a month ago, remember, like a month ago, you could convince yourself you could get Jaren Jackson Jr. for Pascal, and now you know damn well that's not nowhere near in the realm of possibility.
That is true.
Ain't that funny? Ain't that funny?
I mean, yeah, and look, I gotta say, I'm very proud of the coaches. They like I understand that Drew Holiday's offensive impact has not been great this offseason.
There used to be Ben Wallace all-stars, those kind of all-stars, because defense matters. I think
Ben
we've gone
Wallace
away
was like
from
a
that.
very, very obvious case of an all like, but there was also an Antonio Davis All-Star year. There was also a Jamal McGlure All-Star year. I guess like centers
But
were
Ben Wallace is
the
better
East
than
just
those two.
sucked. Like let's just be honest, the East fucking sucked for a while. Okay, like let's be real. It was like almost a decade after Jordan retired, and the East fucking sucked every
Andre
single year.
Karolinko All-Star. Andre Karolinko All-Star.
Andre Karolinko is one of the best players of all time.
No, I agree, and I think Ben Wallace is really really good. He shouldn't be lumped in with Jamal McGlure. He's so much better.
He is
But
so much better.
it's
I
like
agree.
guys who aren't scoring 20 All-Stars.
Yeah, Andre Kirilenko's analytics blow. Like if Andre Kirilenko existed today, you would have people talking about him as like
Like
a
he's like
soft
Nikola Jokic.
MVP candidate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Nikola Jokic
like it's just yeah, it's so crazy what that guy's value was. Like his
two
like
steals,
I've
two block seasons, multiple.
there was like I think there was like a 9 or 8 box plus minus season. That's Kawhi territory. No one ever talked about Andre Kirilenko like that, but I'm telling you, the guy impacted winning in so many crazy ways. It was just a very short peak, unfortunately, with him. I think he aged out around 27.
I think they should like make a 2 slots on each All-Star team for non 20-point scorers, something like that. There needs to be a rule. We can't just, But
Yeah, K Money saying, "Dog, the most we get for Siakam is young player like Sharp or Wiseman and Kuminga." I gotta be honest, man. I just want to say this is the final thing. Jonathan Kuminga is not that great. Don't let stats fool you. He's just not that
the
great.
IQ is non-existent.
Absolutely.
Zero.
And I want to say that James Wiseman is possibly the worst player in the NBA.
I agree.
He is so fucking bad. He is aggressively bad. I watched him in a G League game.
If you're not getting Poole, I don't want
out
nothing
of
to do with
place.
that team. If you're not getting Poole, I don't want anything.
Yeah, it's so it's like I gotta say, like sometimes when you're too bold and you're too brash, people remember. I remember the Warriors saying that they were 10 years ahead of everybody, right?
And they picked for fit, and that was the worst decision they ever made.
Yeah. And I mean, like, in all honesty, LaMelo Ball is so much better than James
Yep.
Wiseman. Like, I get why they did it, sort of,
It's like
kind
Barnes.
of, but
we
it's like,
picked another guy that is kind of like Siakam and OG, right? So it's like, why pick another guy kind of like that? Because he's the best player available. Or you could get Suggs, who's a more ideal fit and Kyle replacement. And where would that have gotten us?
like, I mean, Jacob Isaac saying, how did that kid go so high? It's like, I don't know, man. Like, he obviously, you got to look at it from the perspective of people just become very enamored with size. Size,
Was he
fluidity,
even mobile?
and
Was he even mobile? Was he even
Yeah.
that fluid?
He's very
He's heavier
mobile.
now, obviously. He's actually
He
heavier
is,
now.
but the way that guy sprints down the court, it's gazelle-like, right? And you just think about it, and you're just like, man, there's got to be some version of this of reality in which case
And he could shoot.
this guy
And he
becomes a
could shoot.
superstar
And he could shoot.
reasonably well,
Yeah.
right? So you have projectable upside there. I just think that at some point you have to figure out A, if the guy loves basketball, and B, if the guy sees basketball. Like, does he feel it, right? Like when I'm watching Anthony Black, when I'm watching Cason Wallace, when I'm watching Azura Thompson or Ammon Thompson, or even if I'm watching Victor Wembanyama and Scoot Henderson, these 6 prospects right there is so obvious to me that they love basketball. I know that may not be obvious. Baba Miller as well. Like, I'm just going to throw him out there. I know that he's not a top 10 pick right now, but those guys, when I watch them play basketball, it feels like they love basketball. James Wiseman, it never really felt like, to me, like watching his high school, tape or watching him in Memphis, it never really felt like he loved basketball. So that, I think, is a dividing line. I know it sounds a little bit kooky to just say, well, how can someone become so good at basketball if they don't love basketball? Well, easy, because they love money. Right?
Mhm.
Basketball is a career.
And what else are they going to do? Get a real job? And what
Yeah,
else are
man.
they
Let's
gonna do?
let's
Get
be
a real
real.
job?
We've all met doctors who don't love medicine. We've all met police officers who don't love policing. Like there are a lot of people
Read a
out there
book.
who just don't fucking like their jobs. And to a lot of people, basketball is a job. A lot of people. I mean, straight up. Like, but when you find a player who has all the potential, checks all the boxes, and they love basketball, I feel like those are the types of players you want to draft. I just never felt like that was ever. And you talk to these young prospects, they're really coached up on what to say. They say
Oh,
all the
yeah,
right
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
They say, yeah, I love basketball. I grew up with a basketball. This is my favorite team. One example was Satnam Singh, and he was doing an interview with the Daryl Morey and the Houston Rockets, and they were trying to ask him like questions about basketball, and it became so obvious that he didn't watch enough basketball. And they asked him to compare himself to any player in the league. Did he say George Morrison? Did he say Manute Ball? No, he said Shaq Yao. Yeah, because he's 7'4", and that was the only person he could think to compare himself to. But he didn't play anything like Shaq or Yao. He had none of the same skills. He just kind of saw himself as a big guy, and maybe there's something. What it's so obvious. You need to shit test these guys. You need to.
Like
so
you
it's
did
like when
that guy
Scottie
the other
Barnes.
night. Like
Yeah,
you did the guy the other night. You said Maceo, last name, please.
Bingo. That's
Yeah.
exactly it. So
Yep.
like let me conclude this with a final kind of hit job on Siakam, because I don't want to do this, but I gotta say something that bothered me. He was asked about the Sacramento Kings, right? He was asked about the Sacramento Kings prior to the game against the Sacramento Kings, right? And this was, I believe, the first game against the Sacramento Kings, not the last one. Or was it the last one? Anyways, it was a game when they were playing against Sacramento Kings, and he was asked about them, and I believe it was the first time they played them when the Kings won, right? The Kings won the first one, and then we won the second one. So he's asked about the Sacramento Kings, and he's genuinely caught off guard when he's told that they're good this year. Genuinely caught off guard. Like he couldn't believe it. He's like, really? He's like, well, I don't know. Well, they used to have Rico.
I know. You think you're checking on your buddy on his old team. Yeah, I know.
Well, no, not even that. I'm just saying, like, what type
What
of
do you do on your off time? Yeah, this isn't something you love. You don't digest it. Yeah.
like
guys
when I
like-
listen to Kyle Lowry, he still watches Raptor games. His
Yeah.
mom still watches Raptor games. Like when you check in on like certain players, you're like, they're like really, really following the league. Now, I'm not saying that watching basketball is the only thing. Now, Pascal Siakam's been on the record. He's like, oh, well, when I'm in my off time, I don't like watching basketball. I don't watch that much basketball or whatever. I'm sort of new to this or whatever. But it's like stuff like that is just like, well,
it matters. To
it
me.
really does. Like, this is what you do. This is your life. Like, I mean, you can treat it like a job. And yeah, watching the Sacramento Kings and knowing that the Sacramento Kings are good this year, it doesn't feel like it's really your job, right? You can take that sort of approach and just say, well, my job is to, whatever. Like, my job is not to get
If you
rostered
loved
by.
it, you'd watch it. If you loved it, you'd watch it. It's basically your point. I agree. I love basketball. I watch it.
Yeah, like DC is saying Siakam watches more soccer than ball. And you know how many times I've been to a game and I'll just see before the game and he's shooting a shot and then somehow a ball ends up near his foot and he'll just start playing with it. Now, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. It's a great thing. In fact, his early soccer work is a big reason why he's such a good basketball player. But I just want to say, like, that's the joy.
Yeah.
His joy is soccer.
Also,
That's the love.
I'm jealous.
Basketball became, so it's like he may have a workman-like approach to this and he may have a work ethic for it, but I'm telling you, man, you gotta love this shit to be like great at it.
And
right?
I'd never say this, but I was jealous of the Sacramento Kings because they had shout outs to Leo and Basketball Zone, but they had an interview, I think a couple weeks ago, with their two best players, Sabonis and Fox. And Sabonis said, Fox, a lot of guys don't like big men bringing the ball up the court or running the offense, and Fox lets me do it. And Fox was like, yeah, I don't care. He's our best passer. He's our best playmaker. Fox even said it got to the point where he's telling players to inbound to Sabonis. Like he's pointing to Sabonis sometimes on inbound. He's like, pass it to him. And then you look at our team. And then Sabonis is like, in clutch situations, Fox is our guy. He takes us home. And Sabonis is like, Fox is like, Sabonis should be the all-star. And Sabonis is like, no, Fox should be the all-star. Like, that is why they're third. And then what happens on our team? You know what I'm saying? Like, contrast that.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. Someone here saying Shaq once said his passion was football. Basketball was just a job. That makes a lot of sense. There's
the
a
one that
very
said Shaq would be in shape if he played in today's game. Was that you?
No, I wondered aloud if he might have not bulked up if he had played in today's game, because his version of events is that he does play in today's game. His name is Giannis Antetokounmpo. And I see, young
Shaq is more mobile than the current Giannis. He's more fluid. He runs faster. Like, it's crazy how he used
Yeah,
to move and how high
young
he used to
Shaq
jump
was crazy. Yeah, I
and how
agree.
lean he was.
He was, and he bulked up to like play with the big guys. But
And
I
then
do. I also wonder if like he. I mean, he could drop 50 pounds and still be the strongest player in the
we
league.
ruined JV. We ruined Bargnani with the bulk up. Ruined them. Absolutely
Yeah.
destroyed them.
K Money saying, "Why are you comparing Shaq and Pascal?" I don't think I'm comparing Shaq and Pascal. That's funny. But yeah, no, I firmly believe it. Look, there are certain players that I've talked to before, and you could just tell that they inhale the game. They love the game. They know all the stats. They know all the players. They know like everything about it. Then there's certain guys, I swear, they do their job. They go home. They don't want to talk about the game. I once knew a player in 2007 who had a policy at home where they weren't allowed to watch basketball games. He said, "It's my job. I want to stay away from it." I'm not going to say who it was, but like, trust me, it showed. Like, people just assume that, I think from our fan perspective as the millions and if not billions of people who watch basketball, we just assume that if anyone ever got to that level, it must be because they're just so great at it. And it's just not true,
Yeah.
you know, because just like with any other profession, there's always going to be a healthy number of people that just kind of are in it.
Do you think you could have? Do you think you could have a high IQ for the game if you consider it as a job?
Yes,
Okay.
I do. Because you could have been coached at a very early age to see the game properly. I just think that joy, passion, whatever it is, it extends. You know, one thing I will tell you, I don't think you can be a great playoff performer if you don't love the game.
hmm
That's one thing I'm like,
Do you think it
Jordan.
eats him? Do you think it eats him alive, Pascal, when he has bad playoff games? Do you think he has restless nights? Because those guys do. They're pissed.
Yeah, I think there's so many things, you know, that come to mind like that show up when you love the game, right? Like, I mean, for instance, the scrums, right? Like I saw that the Jazz, it's not the Jazz, shit.
The Bucks,
The
Raptors.
the Timberwolves Magic fight
Yes, yes.
with Mo Bamba and Jalen Suggs versus Austin Rivers. And I saw that, and you just saw how fast Anthony Edwards just sprinted over, right? And he was like playing scrum half, basically, just pulling people apart and shit. And I'm just like, I don't think Pascal would do that
No, he wouldn't.
because it's not his problem, it's not his business,
No.
it's not his fight, right? That kind of attitude, it's the same attitude that he had in training camp last year, where he said, you know, I'm not guys psychologist. I'm not going to sit guys down and say this and that. It's not my job.
hmm
It's the same attitude that he has when he talks about how much hazing Christian Koloko is going
By the
through.
way,
And he says, you know, we're not, these guys don't do anything. We don't
do
make
you
them
think
do
he's a front
anything.
runner? Do you think he's a front runner, Pascal?
I don't know. I don't know.
Because
But one thing that has always rubbed me the wrong way about Pascal is that
this
he doesn't seem to care very much about other people.
no, it doesn't
Like,
come off that way. It comes off that way, at least.
right. Because like, I gotta be honest, like if I'm a leader, I accept that job has a responsibility tag to it. That means that I am responsible for, to some extent, to assist people beneath me and to elevate them, you know. And there's a lot of people who believe that because he's so hardworking and, you know, he's first one in the gym and the
Yeah,
stories, you know, they build up, that that means that he's a leader.
yeah.
And that's sort of like one way of leading. You can say that that's part of it. You know, leading by example, right? Kawhi was like that. Kawhi was a lead by example type. But I think that that's probably why you need to support that type of leader with another leader who isn't like that.
And you can't have that leader and then have the other one be Fred.
Mm.
Yeah.
James Nelson saying Vashawn Leonard treated the game like a job. That's interesting. How do you know
But
that?
I think what happened this year and everything that could gone wrong,
Mhm.
really showed Pascal and Fred's like kind of like their true colors, right? Because their leadership style, their style of play, it was really highlighted, and the shine is off.
Yeah. Well, let's hope, you know, 5 more days, 4 more days, and, you
Because
know, this
I'm pretty
nightmare
sure
season.
if this
Pardon?
team was healthy, the talent level would would kind of hide it if we were healthy. Like, is this team more talented than the team post-championship, the 1920 team?
More
Like,
talented
what's the
than that
biggest
team?
gap in terms of talent? Because no one thought that team would win 50, not whatever games they won.
They were on pace to win the most games. They were on pace to win more games than they did the year before. It's just the season
Yeah,
got
I
shortened.
know. And that team won 58 games. What's the biggest difference between that post-championship team and the talent on this team? I don't think it's that big of a gap that it's come to this.
Giovanni saying Vegas odds 75% OG getting traded. Is that true? That can't be true. That's impossible. Those odds are too high. Those are way too high.
I just hope they attach Pascal in any OG trade.
I mean, if those are actually the Vegas odds, I'm taking a bet right now that he does not get traded. I think that's too high. I'm not saying he's not going to get traded. I'm just saying like that's way too high.
OG, what they should do with OG is like, when a girl, an attractive woman is going out on a date and then she tells the guy, yeah, but I have a friend,
Mm-hmm.
but I have a friend and she needs a date. That's Pascal. Can you find Pascal a date, please?
Wow.
This is a double date. Yeah.
Let me know in the chat, guys. There's 223 of you guys here. Would you appreciate a full day live stream of the trade deadline?
Jeez.
Let me know. We'll do like a noon till 5 p.m. type of thing. We'll do like 5-6 hours, and we'll do like a crazy consistent live stream, and we'll break down the trades as they come in. Let me know if you would appreciate that. Absolutely, yeah, sounds fun.
But
Yes.
do you think anything will happen? The way they're talking is as if nothing will happen until the Raptors make a play. And Raptors are holding up the entire trade deadline. If the Raptors wait to the last second, what can the other teams do if they're waiting for us? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, all of these deals they kind of get pushed through in the hour before the deadline,
Yeah.
right? And they're all just kind of like everyone's waiting, right?
Yes.
So I guess I see it.
If the Raptors wait to the last second, you could reasonably see like 10 trades go down in the last 30 minutes.
I think a lot of deals can be finalized prior to the deadline, but then break later, right? They'll break when they're good and ready to break. For instance, there could be a deal. I mean, there can't be a deal done right now, but there could be a deal that's agreed to and
Yes,
and sort
in
of like
principle,
wink,
in
wink,
principle.
done right now in principle, and they're just looking for a third team, and there's already a plan to say, okay, we will give you OG for blank, 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 and we're trying to see if we can get a third team, but if we can't get a third team by 3 p.m., this deal is done. Something like that, you know? So it's almost like a conditional offer. It has been made. And and reneging on that offer, obviously, if you look at the Raptors track record, they deal a lot with front offices that have good track records. That's why I've always thought that the Brooklyn deal was kind of strange, because it's not a front office with a good track record. But you look at Portland, they've dealt with Portland before. You look at San Antonio, they've dealt with San Antonio before. There's good ties in Chicago. There are really good ties in Chicago, even though they haven't dealt with them before. There are good ties. I know Masai is really close with his name's Mark Eversley, and Jeff Waltman in Orlando.
I was watching the Claxton guard Porzingis yesterday, and I was like, God, we almost had this guy last year at the trade deadline. Jeez, I'm pretty sure Masai's like, I haggled, and look where he is now. We could have had him, but whatever.
All right, man.
This
stream is 4 hours, and I'm out.
Hold
Make sure to
almost 4. Let it get to 4. There's 10 seconds left. Come on.
Why? No. It's terrible for the algorithm. Gotta go. Peace.
Okay.
All right. Bye.